Hey everyone, it's Brian of Vatican. How are you guys doing tonight? Can you hear me? I have a new lavalier mic outside, so hopefully the sound is a bit better on my side than before. If you have a one to let me know that the audio is okay, hear you loud and clear. Thank you. He's disparaged himself, Tiffany Marie. Thank you, Jen. She's already one of my bad actors anyway. Um, I've already chronicled plenty of her tactics in the past. Glad the sound works well. Um, I believe I saw her comment something about don't disparage him, he hasn't done anything, whatever, that's absurd. He's defamed the family. It's just like Alex Jones. He committed the exact same offense as Alex Jones, and he can try to hide behind his free speech and his right to an opinion and his plausible deniability. But sorry, there is no other way to interpret claiming that she does not exist, and there is nothing here that is real without clearly suggesting that therefore the parents don't have an actual daughter who is dead, that their grieving is therefore false, that the police are lying, that the coroner's lying, that everybody's lying, that there are literally dozens and hundreds of people that are likely involved in a mass cover up at a scale larger than likely Watergate. So these people are clearly have no idea what they're talking about, and they haven't reasoned through their arguments very well. So, but before I didn't want to begin there, so a little bit of hellos and a bit of some cleaning up to do and some things I have to say. How's everybody doing? I hope you're having a nice evening. It's Friday evening in the tropics here. I am sitting outside in my sun deck at Mango Manor. When I first moved here from Switzerland, my girlfriend at the time made a cute little wooden sign with pretty colors, tropical colors, and since I'm a big fan of mangoes and the tropics, she made a pretty little design on a piece of wood and hung it on my palm tree, and my house was dubbed Mango Manor. Um, that little sign has since faded from all of the tropical rainfall and just the harsh elements here. But yes, so thank you everyone for coming. I hope you're having a nice evening. I have a cocktail. I decided to go out this evening and refresh my refrigerator. So I will be partaking a bit, but I will try to go softly, at least till the end. Who knows how long this will go? But so what did I want to talk about? So first thing is the title. So, um, what do you think of that title? Am I being cheeky? Perhaps. Am I being provocative? Sure. Is the title clickbaity? Perhaps, but that's really for you to decide. It's not really my place to tell you what you should think about the quality of my arguments or my approach to making them. So, but please at least do me the favor of allowing me to present my case to you tonight, and maybe we can decide together whether or not Ryan Upchurch should be canceled from true crime. So we'll talk a bit about what canceling means. We'll talk about some of the things we've talked about in prior streams, like the limitations of free speech, the poor defense of I have the right to an opinion, and all of the various methods that we have at our disposal to confront and challenge bad behavior and um, ultimately bad beliefs and ideas. So maybe I could start there, as I've said before. As a civilization, our first defense against bad behavior is to utilize our right to free expression, our right to criticize. If somebody claims that they have the right to speak their mind, certainly they should afford us the equal and opposite right to respond back with our own right to free expression. And then, what do we have after that? Well, we have the protection against bad behavior of organizations. So, in the case of social media, to the extent that somebody misbehaves and goes against the rules of a private organization, like a social media company, they can be canceled and they can be deplatformed and they can lose their ability to monetize on that platform and they can lose their right to participate on that platform at all. So that's one way we as a civilization can be protected against bad behavior. And then the next level of protection that we have to protect ourselves and to protect others against bad behavior is to resort to the law and ultimately criminal and civil prosecution. So those are our three main tools: the right to challenge bad ideas with equally bold and powerful speech, and then we can challenge bad behavior via corporations, or at least they set the rules for the behavior on their platform. And they have a vested interest in their clients not getting, for example, defamed, harassed, bullied, or threatened on their platform. And then, as I said, then we have the law, where bad behavior can be sanctioned either criminally or civilly. So we can hit them in the pocketbook civilly, or we can remove them from society and put them into um, metal rooms with guards with guns and remove any chance that they can actually physically harm anyone, at least. So I wanted to then sort of begin by discussing what we mean by canceling and ultimately cancel culture. So if you've ever been reprimanded, if you were ever reprimanded as a child by your parents, you were effectively canceled. If you've ever been put in the back of a classroom for misbehaving or antisocial behavior when you were a kid in class, you were canceled. If you've ever been expelled from school, you were canceled. If you've ever been castigated or felt under immense pressure from your peers in high school to such an extent that it made you cry, or it made you change your behavior, or you were getting bullied for something that they perceived that you did wrong, you've been canceled. We've been canceling and getting canceled for time immemorial. And we cancel each other in a host of different ways. It's just part and parcel of living in a human society with rules. It's nothing more than criticism and social and public sanctioning of bad behavior. Public and individual criticism is nothing new, and people have had to pay the consequences of that criticism since we first formed societies, first in our families, and then in small clans, and then in larger villages, cities, countries, and ultimately now in a global interconnected civilization. To the extent that that criticism, that canceling, carries some sort of social, political, or economic weight, that you actually have real life consequences, you've been canceled. So how might we try to distinguish the cancel culture that has become now a meme in this modern age, in this culture war that we're experiencing? Well, clearly we're referring to a different scale of canceling which has been brought on by the internet and social media. And that allows us not only merely a more powerful individual voice, in that it can now carry beyond your backyard and across your country and across the world, but even more importantly, it provides us with a far more powerful collective voice. Never before in history has it been easier to create a group of like-minded individuals in very, very large numbers, and to use those voices to put a massive amount of pressure on individuals, groups, employers, institutions, companies, and governments. You put a hashtag next to cancel and with somebody's name or a company's name, and you get enough people on board, you can have a serious effect on people. You can force companies to change the products they offer, the ingredients that they put in their products. You can put pressure on politicians and celebrities to change their behavior. So in our past, again, we only ever had the means to level complaints and criticism face to face, if we were even in the vicinity of the target of our grievances. And in a group, only to the extent that we could organize and gather a large amount of people to use collective pressure. And again, as I pointed out, teen peer pressure, a good example of cancel culture, if I've ever seen one. It's all about rules that we establish in our society, and to the extent that people don't play by certain rules, they may get canceled. But we're going to discuss the negative side of so-called cancel culture, and when somebody can essentially be canceled for unjust reasons. So as technology advanced, we were able to write and level complaints and criticism via hand-transferred letters and carrier pigeons, and then snail mail. And then we developed technology like telegraph, and ultimately the phone, and then email, and now the World Wide Web and social media. So canceling someone or a group has never been easier, but it's certainly nothing new among social animals. Hell, if you know anything at all about social animal behavior in nature, you know very well that even non-human social animals get canceled. Shunning, as I have discussed before, is commonplace among our ancestors and closest cousins. For anyone who exhibits antisocial or unfair behavior as determined by the group. So if they steal someone else's food, or if they're not considered to be working as hard as others, they can be canceled by the group. This is just called shunning. It's making social animals pay social consequences for behavior that's considered against the interests of the community as a whole. So in other words, again, yeah, if you don't play by the rules in nature, you can always get canceled, or simply not find many takers when it comes to finding mating partners, for example. So in that sense, your genes end up getting canceled because you simply can't get laid. So what do we usually mean when we talk about cancel culture in between scare quotes? Well, we normally, or at least the people that are using it in a derogatory form, are referring to a set of extreme social behavior as part of an excessive, maybe, let's say, outrage culture. You know, to use another meme, a culture of Karens, if you want, where anytime someone disagrees or doesn't like someone, people can be mobilized to try to shut them down on social media, or even to go real life via things like doxing and mass scale bullying and discrediting someone's reputation, harassing them, stalking them, going even to the extent where you contact their employers and their family members and their lovers and their organizations and other methods in order to try to get someone fired or to ruin their reputation or otherwise damage their personal and professional life. A common example cited often is universities having canceled certain speakers due to pressure from the community, and then due to ultimately the backlash of, let's say, student communities. And this was very much one of the common examples when cancel culture became a thing that we were all supposed to worry about, and that was ultimately being considered an infringement on free speech. So, all that aside, do I think then there are negative aspects to so-called cancel culture? And that cancel culture is even a relevant topic to discuss? Absolutely, yes. But do I think that all claims and shrieks of cancel culture hold up under moral and rational scrutiny? Absolutely not. And for the reasons that I began this conversation with, that we've been canceling each other and getting canceled since we began. So the question is not whether canceling is a legitimate thing, but whether or not the claims being made to justify attempts at canceling someone are justifiable, and whether or not we can point to actual harm done at a scale which is relevant to justify attempts at canceling someone. And to the extent that you can't, so if you're wrong, for example, about the claims that you're making against somebody, that they are wrong, you're claiming that somebody else is wrong and you're wrong, well, then your act of attempting to cancel them, no matter how many people agree with you and all join forces to shut somebody down, that can't be justifiable because the claims being made to justify the canceling are wrong, are just empirically wrong. They're incorrect. And then we should evaluate whether or not a certain behavior is harmful enough to justify a sort of collective effort at canceling someone. So, um, so to the extent that you're wrong about what somebody has done, or to the extent that you can't demonstrate that what someone has done is harmful, and then you're trying to bully them or shut them down or silence them or have them deplatformed, that, I would agree, is wrong and harmful. So, like with everything else, we should evaluate each cancel claim in isolation and look at the case on its own merits or lack thereof. Oh, by the way, I got remonetized today. I reapplied last night. I was no longer monetized, but I'm back to being monetized, so everything is available, super chats and all that, and I still might set up a memberships eventually, and we can talk about that another time. So again, the point of this little discussion is that we're talking about whether we should cancel someone. We're just talking about whether or not a person, a group of people, or an organization, or a government deserves to be criticized for something. Do we have legitimate grievances? And are those grievances justifiable by a rational and empirical evaluation of them? If you can justify that somebody is doing something harmful, that somebody is saying something factually incorrect that's consequential, we should morally feel obliged to try to cancel them. Now, again, by cancel, I simply mean criticize. I only use words. I don't go in real life. But there are certain causes that rise to such a level where I would feel morally obliged to walk hand in hand with all of you in the street to protest. Um, if the cause was just enough and consequential enough. And I may very well march against you next week in solidarity with a different group if another consequential claim or cause is being protested against in large numbers. And it's nothing personal. It's a question of principle. So this whole concept of cancel culture has now simply become a meme, and a lot of people are using it um, frivolously and to hide behind their refusal to take responsibility for their own behavior or for their inability to actually condemn actually harmful behavior. So there's all sorts of extremely harmful behavior, very harmful misinformation that's propagating. We should all care about that. and we should all attempt to cancel that. We can attempt to cancel that through joining forces to use hashtags and form groups and form communities and enter into discussions and argue methods and solutions to be able to confront this harmful and dangerous behavior, or these harmful and dangerous claims, or these harmful and dangerous people. So I think that we should uh, intellectually be fair about what canceling someone means. It is simply criticizing bad ideas, harmful behavior, and challenging and targeting those individuals who manifest these ideas and this behavior. So it's in that context that when I say cancel Ryan Upchurch, I mean that I think we have a case here that we can justify that, given the scale of his influence, given the consequential nature, the dangerous consequential nature of the claims that he's made, and the harm that has already been done and can be done, I think we have a moral obligation to attempt to criticize him in no uncertain terms, and yes, attempt to cancel him. Now, we need to understand that when I am saying we need to cancel him, I have no illusions that we can physically cancel him, that we can remove him from YouTube, or we can so intimidate him through superior reasoning that he will be effectively rendered inert and impotent, or even go cry in his bedroom and shut down his channel out of shame. I don't believe we can cancel him in that way. The only entity that can cancel, there are two entities that can cancel Ryan Upchurch. That is YouTube, that should enforce its terms of service. He has clearly broken their terms of service in his use of bullying and clear defamatory behavior. He has, whether or not he owns it or not, he has accused the Kiely family of being crisis actors, lying about having a dead daughter, lying about the sincerity of their grieving, lying that the coroner is lying that there's a body somewhere that has been identified as Kiely Rodni, that all of the police in the chain of command that viewed this body and have good reason to believe this is Kiely Rodni, an actual person, the child of the Rodni family, is Kiely Rodni. All of these people are being accused of lying, of colluding, of being crisis actors, of being complicit in a very large scale conspiracy theory. Someone like Ryan Upchurch, someone like Alex Jones, he's effectively, as I said in my prior video, he has done the exact same thing that Alex Jones did in the Sandy Hook case. He can try to shoo it away and say, whatever these idiots that are calling me Alex Jones. He needs to understand that the reason people are leveling that criticism and making that comparison is because he has done the exact same thing as Alex Jones. And as we saw, Alex Jones just got hit really hard in the pocketbook. So this guy should feel the heat. But he thinks he will never be held accountable. He thinks he doesn't have to follow the rules. He thinks nobody will do anything about it. He thinks, regardless of whether he's done something wrong, there will be no consequences. So until he is canceled somewhere, he will continue with his arrogant, ignorant, selfish ways. And there's little reason to believe otherwise. So who can cancel? How can he be actually canceled? Well, he can be canceled by YouTube, clearly. This is private property, ladies and gentlemen. Your free speech is not protected in a private organization. You cannot walk into a restaurant with no shoes and pants and shirt if they have a sign that says no service without shoes, pants, or shirt. You will be removed. You do not get to shriek out that your civil liberties are being infringed. you have no case. You are on their private property. They decide the rules. You don't have to like them. You get to leave the premises when they tell you, and if they ask nicely and you do not leave, they will have you removed by the police. So, uh, Facebook or YouTube is like my home. I may invite you into my home for Thanksgiving dinner. I may leave the front door open and make just a whole lot of extra turkey and mashed potatoes and gravy for you all. And I make an open invitation for anybody in the area to come to my home for Thanksgiving. But if you come into my home and you start a fight and you're profane and you don't share the food and you're an asshole and you're rude and you make me sick, I find you loathsome, you get thrown out of my home. You get asked nicely, and if you don't leave and you get belligerent, I'll throw you out. And if you still try and stay on my property, I'll call the police and they'll make sure to finish the job. So you cannot hide behind the free speech argument to all of the Cretan squad that might come to make the common argument that he has the right to an opinion, and us attempting to cancel him is essentially infringing on his free speech. No, it is not. We are simply using our free speech to counter his free speech. So canceling is simply us using our free speech, maybe all of us using a cancel Ryan Upchurch hashtag and trying to spread the news around that anybody that platforms him, that doesn't give him a hard time in the context of true crime, should have to pay social consequences. They should be shamed. They should be shunned. Their credibility should be called into question. His credibility should be called into question for everything he does. You want to call him up and talk to him about rap music or fried chicken or cornbread? That's none of my business. That has nothing to do with what I'm talking about. I'm talking about his clearly defamatory behavior. And again, another point to make at this point, Ryan Upchurch has broken the law. Okay? And there is no equivocation. He has broken the law. Broken the law. If you kill somebody and you don't get held accountable, the cops don't find you. You don't get indicted and successfully prosecuted, or you get acquitted. You have still broken the law. The fact that you do not pay the legal or civil consequences of illegal behavior makes it no less illegal. What he is doing and what he has done in this case is illegal. His free speech rights ended where he defamed innocent people without evidence. So call it what it is. His behavior is illegal. Now, the fact that YouTube doesn't want to enforce its terms of service is despicable. And we should all also use our voice to put pressure on YouTube to consistently enforce their terms of service. Obviously, the problem, as many of you know, their complaint system is a bit arbitrary. Plenty of people are being, having their videos deleted and their channels deleted, where they are following the terms of service, where they are conforming with the rules of fair use. But given the size and relevance of a community of reporters or a single reporter with a large platform, and YouTube does not look like it's enforcing its rules consistently, and that makes people crazy because, as I teach a lot of moral philosophy, and I even from the perspective of prototypical moral philosophy and other social animals, animals do not like it when the rules are not enforced consistently. Animals do not like it when you sanction one person for something and then you don't sanction someone for the same thing. That makes animals crazy. And so YouTube and Facebook and all the other social media platforms really need to up their game so that we can have confidence that they will at least enforce their rules and that they will protect innocent people from serial liars, misinformation peddlers, and defamatory lowlifes like Ryan Upchurch. So my case for Ryan Upchurch to be canceled is that his behavior is clearly illegal. He shows no remorse. He doubles and triples down, and there is absolutely no reason to believe that he will stop. So I believe that Ryan Upchurch should be canceled because what he's doing is consequential. He could get people killed. He could cause people to commit suicide. He's mobilizing 3 million rabid cult followers that are going real life and doxing people and threatening people and harassing people, and he takes absolutely no accountability, and he does not even believe that he has any responsibility. So when you see one of the points that I'd made uh, in a previous video is that it seems to me that Ryan Upchurch, who didn't have much to do apparently, started noticing what I've been calling the true crime ghetto since I came here. And he noticed that there were hack, bad true crime actors in this space. So, but he only watches true crime bad actors. And clearly he's become an understudy of the true crime bad actors because you see him employing all the tactics. So clearly, um, Muffin Boy here has identified that there are idiots, incompetent idiots in this space. And he thinks he can do better. So that's his argument, that there are other bad actors in this space who are hacks. And therefore, he's smarter than they are. But this is called going after low-hanging fruit and essentially sort of relativism. It's also sort of straw manning. Ryan's not smart enough to realize that there are legitimate true crime sources, professionals, people that are proper investigators, actual criminal investigators, proper investigative journalists that do proper research. There are actual law enforcement officers in this space that do proper legal investigation and know what that even means. There are lawyers in this space that know the law. There are legitimate true crime sources on YouTube and elsewhere. But Ryan doesn't refer to them. He only punches down. He only refers to the lowlife channels. So he likes to believe that by comparison, he's a super genius. This is essentially what's called straw man. So, and he only uses ad hominem against sort of the low-hanging fruit instead of actually ever addressing legitimate criticism. I don't need to strawman Ryan Upchurch to eviscerate him intellectually. I can steelman his arguments. I can represent his arguments verbatim in a way that he would accept are things that he has said. And then I can eviscerate the bad logic, the bad reasoning, and the complete lack of evidence and his inability to understand what the burden of proof is. So I don't need to misrepresent him. I don't need to take him out of context. I could have him in front of me and say, "You said this, correct?" And then I could play back his video. That's what I've always done in my other videos. I don't need to misrepresent their argument or create a straw man, which is easier to vanquish. I can use his arguments verbatim in a way that he would agree. But what he does is he goes after low-hanging fruit. So he just simply refers to a few channels that he has no respect for, that I might also consider are in the ghetto, and then claims that they're bad. Therefore what? The claims he makes are correct? No. Two people can be wrong, Mr. Upchurch. They can be wrong, and you can be wrong as well. The fact that someone else is wrong does not render your arguments valid, moral, significant, or value added. You are a hack. You are ignorant. It is clear from everything you've said that you have no idea how anything works. You know nothing about criminal investigation. You know nothing about evidentiary standards. You know nothing about responsible journalistic ethics. You know nothing about the law. You know nothing about police protocol. You know nothing about why police officers and public officials behave the way that they do in a press briefing. So then you think that you're finding clues, the patterns in the noise. You notice that someone shifted a little bit to the left. They looked a little nervous. They scratched their nose. They looked the other direction. Maybe they and you think that you know exactly why that strange behavioral anomaly is a clue, and you've asserted that therefore they are guilty or they're somehow hiding something. That is not evidence. That is opinion. That means nothing. We could all microanalyze every physical gesture. That's why I complain about body language experts. Yes, we can say certain things about body language, but most body language claims are pseudoscience rubbish. We don't even have a valid scientific method of knowing when someone's lying. But you think that you can tell by somebody shifting their weight, looking the other way, or stuttering on a word that they're guilty of a massive cover up. It couldn't be because they stuttered, because they're nervous, because they're afraid that if they say something inaccurate, the press is going to scrutinize each and every word and they're going to get a bad editorial review from the New York Times or the Washington Post or the New York Post or any of a host of large periodicals that are going to wreck their reputation and call their local police department into question, and their boss is then going to call them into an office and chew their asses out and frickin' fire them? Is it possible that their behavior is random? Is it possible that they don't want to be there, that they're nervous? This guy, every time he says, my little brain can only come up with two logical possibilities. And every time he does that, I'm sitting here as a critical thinking educator going, I can think of about 5 million others. You don't know what a false dichotomy is, do you, Ryan? Simply because you can only come up with two possibilities doesn't mean it is the most logical conclusion. It means that a small brain person who knows nothing about logic or deductive reasoning, who doesn't understand anything about human behavior or the reasons why people are doing things, or the reasons that could better explain the things that you're attempting to explain, because you're not smart enough, Ryan Upchurch. You're a you're an ignorant individual. I'm sorry. It's a fact, Jack. You might not like to hear it, but it's simply a truism, and I've already thrown on the table dozens of examples. Again, I finally went back and watched his last video because I can't, I had to stop listening to him. Again, he says, these people are not real. Prove to me that they're real. No, Ryan Upchurch, you moron. Nobody has a obligation to prove a negative or to prove anything to you. You are the one making the dangerous accusations. You're the one claiming there's a cover up. You're the one claiming everyone's in a conspiracy. You're the one claiming everyone's lying. You're the one claiming that people are not who they claim to be. You have the burden of proof. Nobody needs to do shit. And unless you bring the goods, unless you prove that any of your claims are true, you're whistling Dixie, and everybody should laugh and point at you because you don't even know the basic fundamental premise of logic and of criminal investigation and of the law, which is the burden of proof. And if you don't even know that central, simplest of ideas, nobody should take you seriously on any claim that you attempt to make under the guise of being an intelligent person, a logical person, somebody who knows how to critical think. So, I mean, you're a fool. You demonstrate it with every claim you make. You're dangerous. Your crew is dangerous, and you deserve to be canceled. And now, rant over. I think at this point now, I'm going to take a bit of a break, let you guys digest that, and then I will come on cam, and I think I still have a cocktail. So, hi everyone. What do you think of my? I found a lavalier mic. I didn't know I had. Somebody complained that the mic wasn't very good. So I have this little dude here. I didn't know I had it. I forgot. And then I plugged it back in to the second computer, And it works. What do you know about that? So hopefully the sound quality is a bit better, and anybody that would like to okay, so there's maybe one more point I'd like to make, which I didn't bring up. Well, it's probably 1,000 more points, but I also watched the Zav Girl live stream, and again, I think this cancel Ryan Upchurch hashtag, this idea, this claim I'm making, should extend to those who will gratuitously and shamelessly platform this guy in this case after what he's done without holding his feet to the fire. I haven't seen one person on the platforms that he's been on challenge this dude. It's just, you cowards. And you're either cowards or you're bad actors, because you know you don't want to offend him, because having a guy on your channel with 3 million subscribers is the best day of your YouTube life. And all that you can concern yourself with is thinking about how many new subscribers you have tomorrow. So they're really, and sorry, there's one more possibility. Or you're morally bankrupt and you don't think that what he's done is wrong and dangerous. So you choose. You platform him, and you don't challenge him, and you don't ask him hard questions. You're either a coward, you're a bootlicker, opportunist, or you're morally bankrupt. Your call. Now, again, I don't need to launch ad hominems against people who criticize me. I simply ask that you represent my arguments. I presented my case in good faith. I've made arguments. I simply ask that anybody that disagrees provide rebuttals. Show me where my reasoning is poor. Show me where my moral reasoning is poor. Correct me. I don't want to be wrong one moment more than necessary. But if all you have for me is ad hominem, if you're simply going to use the same approach that Ryan does and throw out every form of insult, yeah, you're a nobody, you got no followers, yeah, whatever, you're a loser YouTuber, and whatever, you're just living in your mother's basement. If those are the only arguments you have, and you're not actually ever addressing the substantive arguments, then you're a coward. So Ryan Upchurch, you absolutely are a coward. I have not seen you once respond with a substantive rebuttal to a legitimate criticism of your behavior. I've only seen you go after low-hanging fruit. I've only seen you insult these low-hanging fruit, these people that are criticizing you. I've not seen you once try to make a case against your best critics, the strongest arguments against your position. Well, I'm your Huckleberry. Now, I'm a small potatoes kind of guy, but you guys have your own brains. Many of you might agree with me. You put these ideas out there. You put these arguments out there. Feel free to use mine. Create your own. If they're good arguments and they hold up under rational scrutiny, these are the arguments that need to be thrown at Ryan Upchurch and his groupies and cults every day, 24/7, and you need to hold their feet to the fire and force them to actually attempt in good faith to provide a substantive, legitimate rebuttal. And if they can't, call them cowards. Tell them they're morally bankrupt. Let them know that they don't even have the courage of their convictions to back up their guru or their own positions, and that all they have is red herrings and distraction and insults. That's not what adults do. That's what 5-year-old kids do on the playground. As adults, we talk through things, and when you make a bad argument, somebody comes back with a substantive and valid rebuttal, and then you try to find out who's making the better, more compelling case. You're using deductive logic, but first you need to know what that is. You're discussing and weighing evidence, but first you need to know what evidence is. Using Google Earth is not evidence. Asserting that you only have two possibilities in your brain that it could be, therefore somebody's not real, and therefore there's a mass cover-up, that's not evidence. Saying that somebody looked like they had white legs in a short little blurry video in the front of their car is a murderer, that's not evidence. None of the arguments that he has made, nothing. I have not seen one claim that this guy has made that justifies the innuendo, the bold assertions, and essentially the accusations. He has accused people. When he says things like, I know who has Kiely, that is a strong claim. He's making a claim to knowledge that he knows who kidnapped a girl. He's accusing someone of kidnapping at that point, and then if she's found dead, he has effectively accused someone of murder. You can't hide behind plausible deniability when you make a video in front of 3 million people and you say, look at that girl, she's got a dog in her boat. And weren't the police talking about a buried dog in the area? This is his attempt to hide behind plausible deniability, suggesting, I never said she killed her dog. It's so unfair of you to suggest otherwise. His audience knew exactly what he was suggesting. He was suggesting that she had killed her dog and buried it. And he was saying that to plant the seed that she was homicidal in order to support his assertion that she was also a murderer and a child trafficker. Come on, you're being dishonest. This is bad faith. Every one of your subscribers knew damn well what you meant when you said she has a dog and the police talked about a dead dog. No, nobody thought through it because clearly she doesn't need to, but he would need to demonstrate that the dog that the police were talking about was her dog. Again, burden of proof. You would think also that there would be a forensic comparison between a dog that died yesterday and a skeletal dog that had probably been buried random. Dogs are buried places, people. Humans are buried places, people. When you start digging around, looking around, you're going to find dead dogs and dead cats and dead things and maybe dead humans. That is not, he's not being honest. He clearly was suggesting she was a murderer of her dog, and he used that ploy in order to support his more bombastic and dangerous claim was that she was also a murderer and a trafficker. And then all of his audience, they knew damn well this is reckless, irresponsible, defamatory, and you can't hide behind plausible deniability. Let me give you an example. If you ever want to see how plausible deniability works as a rhetorical device, I always suggest Steven Pinker, one of the most famous linguists on the planet. He has a book, How Language Works, basically how brains use language to convey meaning. And he will use, for example, in this context, an idea. So, you get pulled over for a speeding ticket, and the police officer walks up to you, and you, in your brain, are thinking about bribing him. But you know that it's illegal to bribe him. So what do you do in order to see if he's willing to be bribed? Well, maybe you pull out your wallet, you say, hi, officer, and you pull out your wallet and you open it up, making sure that the officer can see it, and you can see that you have hundreds and hundreds of dollars in your wallet. So first you let him see that you got a lot of cash on you, and then you might say something like, hi, officer, what have I done wrong? I was just wondering, I have so much respect for the work that you guys do. I was just wondering, would it be possible to donate, let's say, $100 to the annual policeman's ball? This is how people hide behind plausible deniability so that ultimately he could attempt to not claim that he was trying to bribe the officer. But the officer knows what he means, and he knows what he means. It just hasn't been explicitly uttered, the bribe. So for Ryan to suggest that referring to the dog in the same sentence with the police talking about finding another dog, he's trying to hide behind the plausible deniability of not saying you killed your dog. But his audience knew damn well what he meant, and we all know what he meant. So this is dishonest, it's bad faith, and to do this in front of 3 million people, and then to not call off your dogs when they're out there doxing people, and you know, when you listen to him, he doesn't care about defaming. He doesn't care that you're comparing him to Alex Jones. He's like, whatever, you know, idiots. I can do whatever I want. You can't tell me what to do. You can try and stop me, but you know, I'm doing true crime better than these other hacks. What about those other hacks? Those other hacks are idiots. They do stupid things. So that's what he does. He just focuses on the other hacks, not recognizing that both can be hacks, Ryan. The fact that you have identified other people that are wrong, or other people that are stupid, or other people that are doing dangerous things does not in any way justify that the dangerous misinformation and defamatory behavior that you're exhibiting is okay. It doesn't at all. That's not a defense. You need to support your claims. You are on your own. This is about the claims that Ryan Upchurch has made, not about the claims that anybody else has made. We can all discuss all of the other wrong claims. And if we're talking about somebody else, Ryan, you can say, well, that guy makes bad claims too. Obviously, none of this holds up under any sort of rational scrutiny. Well, I mean, Charles Manson killed someone. I mean, yeah, I killed somebody too, but Charles Manson killed someone. We know that this doesn't hold up under rational or moral scrutiny. He he knows he's acting in bad faith. He simply believes that he won't be held accountable. He's not afraid of YouTube. He doesn't believe that they're going to delete his videos and give him strikes and possibly remove his channel. He does not believe that anyone is going to pursue a defamation case or that he's in any financial risk. He needs to. This individual clearly, because of his ego, is going to need to feel tangible consequences. He's going to either need to feel them through our words, just a constant bombardment of claims that he's a dangerous idiot, that he's broken the law, that he's Alex Jones 2.0, that what he's done to the Rodni family is unacceptable, and YouTube's going to need to do something, and he's going to need to feel it in his pocketbook eventually. Otherwise, he's not going to change. And he's got a much bigger army than any of us combined. So he's just going to keep doing this to everyone, people. He's going to keep doubling down. He's going to keep making a mockery of true crime and investigation, and all of the people that are giving him a platform that won't call him out are disgusting and opportunists and cowards, or just really, really stupid. And all that amounts to the same thing to me. So I think hopefully I've made my case until I think of the next thing to say. Does anybody want to come up and have a talk with me? Anybody want to challenge the things I've said? I'm sorry I haven't been able to follow the chat. When I go off on these arguments, I risk losing my train of thought if I try to focus on two things at once. Thank you to the mods if you've been protecting the room and the chat for me. I'm going to drop a line, and anybody who wants to come up and let me know if they find my case compelling or not, you are now welcome to come say hi. God damn it. I hate it when you try to grab a comment and put it on screen and you grab the wrong one, and then it scrolls up too fast and then you can't find it anymore. Very frustrating. Ryan Upchurch will never be sued. He has millions and millions of dollars. He'll win and they'll lose. He's right, they're wrong. That's exactly what Alex Jones said. That's why putting the fear of Alex Jones in him is a good thing. Hello, yo, welcome.
Hey, what's going on, buddy?
I don't believe we've met. How are you tonight?
Pretty good. How about yourself?
Good. Now I can relax a little bit. I wanted to make sure that I at least got it off my chest. I'm sure I missed some things, but let's see. Bring up Buttercup. Hello, Buttercup. How are you this evening?
I'm doing well. How are you? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes.
So, Buttercup and Yo, what would you like to talk about?
You can go first.
Well, okay. My phone's gonna die, so I can't be on here that much. I want to say what really strikes a nerve with Ryan, because I'm YouTube, and I have always observed, never really own opinions, but what really bothers me about Ryan is to send his fans and go attack other people. He just did this yesterday. Random young man's YouTube that had Lana Del Rey song lyrics and like some kind of artsy video with this friend or girlfriend or whatever, post in his community post, and then has his followers go there, box them. And that is just heartbreaking because that he continues to attack. And I find this very dangerous for a couple.
You're cutting out just a bit, so it's a bit hard to understand. But I get the gist. You find it just deplorable that he's now. Do you think, or do you have examples of him where you think, because one of the things that large channels can do is, again, claim innocence because they are not their brother's keeper and they're not responsible for what other people do in their name. Now, generally speaking, that is true, but when you have a large influence and you're reckless and you're using inflammatory language and making these sorts of claims, you do need to assume some degree of responsibility. You just can't hide behind the, well, I'm not responsible for what some crazy guy does, or if he happens to like me and defend me, or, go pursue people that I'm criticizing. That doesn't hold water. If you are being careful and you just happen to have a large influence and you are treating these cases with the care that they deserve and being careful with your tone of voice and not speaking in an inflammatory, insightful, defamatory fashion, then I agree. You shouldn't need to be held accountable or criticized for what somebody else might do who likes you. But this guy clearly is inciting them. There is no doubt. Have you ever seen him, by the way, explicitly telling them to go get somebody, or telling them to, go over to a channel or anything like that? Probably not, right? It's probably subtle, like
not
mafia bosses.
It's subtle, and he also rewards his fans for being loyal. So is kind of proof. He mentions how he's building something on his property. Only his most loyal fans will be able to get a badge and come. So
I don't know if you saw my parody video yesterday, because that was exactly one of the arguments I was making, was essentially the loyalty game. And I've also heard he's doing a bit of the pay to play exercise where he's throwing down some rather large super chats to people that he wants loyalty from, and some of these same people are then platforming him and giving a safe space to spew his nonsense. So that's also a sort of extortion, if you want. It's a sort of, I'll take care of you if you take care of me.
It's kind of like how frats and sororities do. You, no matter what, it's that brotherhood, that sisterhood. You can't get out of this circle. We're all going to be goes down at all, kind of thing,
Absolutely.
I wish I could come on and say more, but my phone's literally gonna die.
Oh, well,
But
please
I
feel
am
free to please feel free to come back after you charge your phone. We'll probably be around. So, and thanks for coming up.
no problem.
Letting me know.
I'll talk
I agree with
to you guys later. Bye.
I agree with you. That's horrible. Thanks for coming, Buttercup.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Yo,
Yeah,
my
what's up,
friend.
buddy?
Uh, what are your thoughts?
So I think we all can agree that this world is based on money. So I think Ryan isn't going to care because there's money at the end of the day. No matter where you look, from the psychological field to the health industry, it's all about money, especially in the US. It's all about money. It's all it really cares down to. At least the world is all it seems like it cares about. Ryan is not going to care about any of what he is doing, which I have been in the last 2 weeks not agreeing with anything he has done. I've been a follower of him for 2 years, but I have ended up getting blocked because I did stand up for what was right? But I don't think a lot of people in the hierarchy of business, people that have like Ryan's money, the $1 million and all that stuff, they don't really care about what repercussions will happen. We can see this as elites of the world. They don't really give two craps what happens to us. So that's the same analogy I use with Ryan. He's in the top percentile of men, as in like money wise, like top 1%. He has that. It's a business to him. He's not going to care. You know what I'm saying? So he's only going to keep going as a business. He's not going to care who he hurts. Not going to care how Walmart works their workers like crap. Doesn't care that the manager rapes the little girl. Doesn't care. It's all about money, right? So I just use it as a metaphor for like some like Walmart employee like managers and stuff like that have had bad past and stuff like that and do wrong to their workers. We can look at that the same instinct as Ryan. He's not going to care. It's not going to do anything. He's not going to do anything. It's a business to him. And you got to understand it, because I am starting my own business, and this is how I'm trying to subject not being like the rest.
And I've been a very high level corporate consultant my whole life, working for Fortune 100 companies, and been in the corporate world all my career. And unfortunately, I've seen it happen way too often, where people. I mean, the old line is, power and ultimately money corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So there's no doubt that power and money affect otherwise moral people's ability to care about principle and moral behavior. And before I forget, thank you so much, because you are the allies that we so need, because you were a fan, you did like him, but you were able to stand on principle and recognize that regardless of what you thought of the man before, this behavior was not okay, and you had the courage and out of principle to stand up and say it. So I really have nothing but respect for. I had Nick up last couple days ago, and I've had a few other people come onto my channel who are fans. That's the hardest thing to do. I have the luxury of being neutral, of being objective. I didn't know who Ryan Upchurch was. I'm not a fan of his music. I didn't get to see the good parts of him. Some people have said he has many good qualities. None of that matters. What he's being judged on, or at least what I'm judging him on, is his behavior in the Kiely Rodni case, and the just outrageous and dangerous allegations and assertions that he's made in this case. So again, so commendable for you to be able to see the light, and we need more people like you within. And then I made the argument the other night that the people that love him the most, that he trusts, that's who need to tell him that he needs to stand on principle and stop this. But I fear that you are correct, and that unless he gets hit in the pocketbook, he's not going to change his ways. I think he's now gotten too big of a head. I mean, I've seen him too many times say things like, I'm rich and famous, and you're a no one without followers, and you're a loser. I mean, that just really shows his lack of character, because clearly money does not determine moral behavior. It does not determine what a fact is. You can't say, I have $1 million and you have no money, therefore I'm claiming this is a fact, you're claiming it's not, I'm right, simply by virtue of having more money. That makes no sense. It holds up under no rational scrutiny that one could imagine. So I think he has a big head. I think that he will not stop. I predicted after he said he was going to get out of the true crime and go back to his cool life and his music career, and he made another video the next day. So I think he's gotten a high from this social media guru status. I think he gets his kicks from knowing he's got power to push people around and intimidate people, and I think he feels the sort of, cult leader high running through his veins, and I think he rather likes it. And so I don't think he will stop unless he gets hit hard either by the law. Now, I'm not aware that he's crossed the line criminally. He's certainly committed a civil violation. I mean, this is clear defamation. Now, whether there's a difference between the fact that he did commit defamation and whether or not he will actually be pursued, indicted, and charged, those are different things. But that he has committed defamation is a fact, demonstrable fact. So yes, I sadly agree with your take that this is all about money, and he's not going to stop.
I do believe in change. So anything he has done in the past, which he has been caught in a lot of scandals, there has been a lot. I don't care about those past. I've done things in my past I'm not proud of. I've changed from the better. Every person has in their life, even if it's small to major. That doesn't define you as a person. As human beings, we're able to change and become better
Absolutely.
people, 100%. So I don't care about what he does in his past. I'm going to throw that up. I don't care. I care about what's seen now, and the morality standpoint is just far gone. There's like I said, I can understand it from his point in the business psyche. I can understand that from that, because that's what, like I said, a lot of people are like that. But I mean, it's not going to change at all.
It is important to point out that money and power does not necessarily mean that people won't act out of principle or they can't act morally. I think it is unfair to simply assume that by virtue of someone's money and power that they must always only behave out of their own personal financial interest. There are just simply too many examples of wealthy people doing proper philanthropic things. Now, of course, we can always microanalyze them and say, well, they're being philanthropic because they get a big tax write-off, or because their financial advisor told them that they need to donate a lot of money in order to, keep their reputation stellar, or something like that. But it's also not simply fair to assume somebody is immoral because they've been successful, but to be skeptical about
That's fair. That's
someone
fair.
behaving badly when it corresponds with making money is also fair. It's clearly very fair to presume that he's doing this as a cash cow, and that actually his social media revenue stream may very well be his most dependable and stable long-term revenue stream, and more so even than his music, and he's going to milk it for all it's worth. Revenue stream may very well be his most dependable and stable long-term revenue stream. Hi, Unseen. I think maybe you need to turn off the YouTube volume on the video, because we have...
Yeah.
Yeah, that's perfect. Great. Welcome and hello. And before I say hi to you, just an opportunity for you to respond. I want you to be able to.
Oh, I appreciate that so much. I appreciate that. So I do have one more take with Ryan's kind of psyche and that stuff like that. As a man, I believe in standing up for what you believe is right. So this is where it can be altered to fit Ryan's persona. I believe sitting up for what you have is right, what you believe is true, not what, even if that's against the law, if that's against the government, anybody's morals. As long as you stick to your guns, I can see a man wanting to keep leaning towards that. That's what makes a man a man. So I wonder if Ryan has shifted that to where he can say these horrendous things, and he's like, you know what, my mom always told me to be a man and stick to my guns no matter what people say. So I wonder if he's altered that shift to it, because I do the same thing. I don't care what anybody says, as long as I feel like I'm doing the right thing, I'm doing right. So do you think maybe Ryan has that same shift or altered psyche to that point, but altered it to a non-moral kind of one?
Well, I mean, since I teach philosophy and a lot of moral philosophy, we often like these quotes that are or these pieces of wisdom that have value in a certain context, but when you analyze them in detail, we can find exceptions. So, for example, we often might say something like stick to your guns or have the courage of your convictions. But clearly, when you're wrong, it's obvious that this can't be a good thing. So then we have sort of a contrary piece of wisdom which says when we're wrong, we should be big enough to acknowledge it and admit it and stop making the mistake. So, so sticking to our guns is a great thing to the extent that we're right, but not a great thing when it's indistinguishable from being just simply wrong and stubborn-headed. So, but I am sure that part of his drive is a belief in his righteousness, and that the worst thing for him to do would be to show weakness or to acknowledge that he no longer believes he's right, because clearly he at least appears as though he thinks he's right. We don't get the luxury of being a fly in the inside of his head to know if he knows he's wrong, but he simply can't acknowledge it, or if he truly believes what he says. Since I also teach science, um, brains are really good rationalization machines. They're very good justification machines. We evolved to need to believe that the things that we believe make sense and that they're true in some way. And we also evolved to not want to hate ourselves, because self-loathing would lead to a lot of dysfunction. So we evolved to be able to justify and validate our behavior and the things that we do. So that makes it that much more difficult for us to have the self-awareness to know that we can also be wrong. And also society values and rewards people who are cocksure and certain and confident and stick to their guns. When people sound wishy-washy, like I don't know, I don't have the facts, I don't have a position, most humans see that as a sign of weakness, even though that may very well be the most intellectually honest position to hold. Like, for example, in this case, what happened to Kiely Rodni? My answer is I do not know. I have enough respect in the authorities that they are at least the best positioned people to have access to the best information, to do the proper investigation, and to hopefully find out what happened, and then to share that with us eventually. Sometimes the police get things wrong. Police can be incompetent. Police can be corrupt. Could there be foul play here? Yes, but I do not know that there is foul play here. I do not know what happened to her. Occam's razor would suggest that another drunken teenager under the influence, possibly emotional, possibly something occurred at the party, just throwing ideas out there, simply made the mistake, like tens of thousands of people every year, got behind the wheel of a car, and a tragedy occurred, a very common tragedy. It's less likely that it was foul play. That doesn't mean it's not foul play, but I have no evidence to suggest it was foul play. And Ryan Upchurch has no evidence to suggest it's foul play. And Ryan Upchurch has no evidence to suggest that Iqmel or Ronnie or Xana May or Mrs. or Kiely Rodni's mother or the coroner or the police or any of these people are lying or covering anything up.
See, what I believe is exactly what you said prior to that, was he's trying to stick to it. Like, you don't want to be proven wrong. You got to understand, Ryan comes from that South era, so it's that, I'm this big, I'm this big hillbilly kind of cowboy tough dude. So he has to keep to that. So I think that was 100% correct. What you said, has been thinking all along, was he has to stick to it.
Absolutely, and to your point about where he comes from, not only is it more an American thing than a European thing. I lived in Europe for 20 years, and it's not nearly the same degree of relevance in terms of being a tough guy and sticking to your guns. He also comes from the South, and that culture has a long tradition of what's called honor culture. So for him to back down, or for him to show signs of weakness or not being a tough guy, is even harder in that context. So you're spot on to make that point, and I think maybe we should bring Unseen into the equation. I don't want to make her sit there too long. Good evening, unseen. Welcome. And how are you this evening? And what would you like to talk about?
Well, I guess let me say this first. If you hear any kind of like weird barking or grunting or whatever, it's I have a 11-month-old cattle dog puppy. They have a lot of
Oh,
energy, so
oh,
he needs about 30 minutes on his treadmill.
oh. Oh, I wish I could see him. See, you're not just trying to cover up because you haven't eaten and your stomach's growling, are you?
No, hold on a
Huh?
second. Oliver.
Oh, I love the babies.
So yeah, he's got his. I can't do it very good. There you go. That's better.
Oh,
He has
oh,
his jolly ball. So
adorable.
yes, he's taking over the house if he has a jolly ball in the house. Anyway, I guess I kind of wanted to kind of talk about. I'm concerned. Oh, I'll tell him you said hi, T. But anyway, I guess I'm concerned. Now that that Kiely, is it Rodney? Is that how we say it? Okay,
Correct.
the way it's spelled is kind of difficult. But anyway, oh, and Jen, I'll tell him you said hi as well. Anyway, I have some concerns. I'm very concerned about Brandy and her family with Michael Vaughn. That's her son.
Yeah, and just for full disclosure, I'm not a true crime channel, and
Yeah,
I pretty much plead ignorance on almost all cases. I have taken an interest in a couple, and I could claim to,
yeah,
know more or less the facts. But that's one particular case. I know of the name. I don't even
yeah.
know of the detail. But please continue.
But anyway, well, I mean, she's already. There's another guy, and you probably don't know him. Harsh Reality,
Yeah,
and
he's one of my bad actors.
okay, I'm he's already got people following that family and everything else. And it's like, and now Ryan Upchurch, I mean, it's like, I almost kind of want to,
That's why I said Ryan Upchurch is an
yeah,
understudy, because Ryan Upchurch learned all of his tactics only from what I call the true crime bad actors ghetto. He's learned
yeah,
all of the conspiracy theory tactics, all of the false pattern matching tricks that these people play, all of the bad deductive reasoning that they use, and all of the opportunistic tactics as well to
mm-hmm,
understand what is going to get views, what is going to appeal to people's emotions and pull at their heartstrings just enough so that they throw out the super chats. These people know our psychology better than we do, and they're good at that.
yeah,
They're horrific at covering true crime cases. They're horrific at knowing anything about the law or journalism or ethics or criminal investigation, but they're good at manipulating and persuading, unfortunately, gullible watchers.
yeah. What is it? I'm very conflicted, and I don't know if anybody else feels this way, but I do really like cracking cases. Maybe I like what they used to be, but it's like they keep hanging around with this harsh reality, and it's like, am I making a hasty generalization? You know,
Well,
it's
there's a lot of, sorry to cut you off, but there's definitely a lot of bad actors, and I've certainly covered a host of them over the last year. But I would like to focus on Upchurch and this particular case, just to sort of keep us on track. I hope
okay.
you don't mind. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So just whether or not you know you feel that his behavior is egregious, or you believe that somehow it's okay, what you think we can do to counter this, because the arguments that we will make against Ryan's behavior will likely, because I said he's an understudy and copying all of the other behavior, will
Yeah.
likely be applicable to harsh reality and all of the other uh,
Mhm.
true, bad actor ghetto channels. And there are, I've gone so far as to argue that the vast majority of the channels that call themselves true crime channels are not adding value and are incompetent, sort of shouldn't be in this space because it's a serious topic with serious consequences, and if you don't have at a minimum the proper ethics to treat these cases carefully and be factual, then you really don't belong here. So I think the vast majority of this space, they really should find other hobbies, and that's the nicest I can say about it.
Yeah, most definitely. But yeah, it's when he first came into the Summer Wells case, I was just some of the stuff that he was saying, it just horrified me just because he was taking such a hard stance against the Wells. I don't know the Wells. Would I invite them over for dinner? Probably not. Um, but it's there's so little information about that. And he just came barreling out, and it's like, and he's on Dolly and everything. I stopped watching Dolly and canceled my membership because of him, because he's just so ridiculous and so over the top.
Yeah, I don't know anything about him. I think maybe I caught 10 minutes
Yeah.
before I took my 4-month hiatus, and I just remember him looking like a sort of tabloid shock
Yeah.
jock sort of show where he just spews his opinion, and I don't know, he's outrageous, or I don't know, what his appeal is, but he didn't look like a very smart gentleman. He didn't look like a very responsible, ethical gentleman. I didn't see the value and the fact that he's, whatever, supportive of Upchurch, and would suggest that my instincts in that one were wrong. I mean, I tried to be careful to not castigate people that I know nothing about. So I don't know enough about Dolly to make any strong claims. I know enough about Ryan Upchurch in this case to know that what he's doing is deplorable and dangerous and illegal, and is setting a horrific role model for watchers and any other true crime channels that will ride his coattails, adopt his methods, redistribute his arguments and videos, and it is the scale of his influence. It's why I made a video in my introduction video where I discussed how your responsibility scales with the degree of influence. So clearly, Bob, drunk in a bar, speculating about who the murderer is in a big viral case, clearly is less consequential than the police chief getting up on a microphone in a press briefing and acting like Bob. So clearly the responsibility scales upward with your influence and your your expertise and your competence level and your professionalism. So there's a reason why we don't hold the drunk guy at the bar named Bob creating conspiracy theories. We don't conflate that harm with the harm that could be done by a government official or a police chief spewing this sort of nonsense. So, I mean, imagine a police chief coming out and saying, that guy Ronnie on the internet, and that girl's anime, and that guy Ickmail, they're all colluding, and they've murdered this Kiely Rodni, and they're also involved in a child trafficking ring, and I have absolutely no evidence to back any of that up. That's clearly more consequential. That individual's responsibility scales with his level of importance, and this is why I'm going after Ryan Upchurch and not some channel with 200 people. Not because I'm clout chasing, because his claims are more consequential because of his influence. He can do more harm than a smaller channel. He has a cult of rabid groupies and devotees that hang on his every word, that see him like a sort of messiah character. I mean, this behavior really is similar, if not identical, to cult-like behavior. People don't like it when you say it's cult-like, but the only analog to the level of loyalty and the inability to question their dear leader is cults. These are cults of personality.
I did want to throw into something about conspiracies whenever you're ready for that too.
Yeah, no, please stop me and cut me off because I'll keep going, and I know I'm overly verbose, so I always try to apologize for that. So please, cut in.
I think it's also very important for everybody in the U.S. not discredit conspiracy theories. I do know a lot of people get slack, oh, they're nut jobs, but there has been quite a few conspiracy theories that have been proven true. Let's give it that. Epps Island, that was a conspiracy theory at one point. Now, I think there has to be a motive or a gain for that to happen with conspiracy theories, but I do want people to be responsible with using all these names and criticizing people with conspiracy theories, because sometimes they're proven to be true. I think we can all agree with that. And I also do think with the lack of how many police officers, people in FBI, CIA, a lot of people in high-ranking, the pyramid, a lot of them are very corrupt and have been doing horrible, heinous acts to children or anybody just in general, covering up murders. It's been proven. So,
well, I can, yeah, go. I mean, go ahead and finish your sentence, and then I'll
with that said, I do think that the conspiracy thing has kind of taken off too, because a lot of people can't really trust people that are supposed to protect us too. I'd love to hear your take on that, because I do think there's more bad than good, at least in those high-ranking officials that I have seen, with proof to back it up. So I think that the conspiracy whole analog is being pushed more because we can't really know who to trust anymore.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I have a ongoing thesis which I've been developing for the last 10 years, my science and philosophy forum. I'm a political scientist and an economist by formation and experience for the last 30 years. And so I have a hypothesis called the revenge of the layperson, and it's essentially sort of a all-encompassing attempt at explaining the phenomena that we are seeing in this era. It's often referred to as the post-truth era, or I also call it runaway relativism, and it is exemplified by empirical evidence like the growing partisan divide, growing distrust for all institutions, just growing distrust in government, growing distrust in media, growing distrust in science. All of the points you're making are true, that in that there is a growing sort of moral panic in our society, which is very common across time in times of rapid change, uncertainty, and the perception of a decrease in standards of living or in security. So I would argue, for example, that there are a couple of catalysts that this process has occurred over about the last 4 years. I would argue that it's caused by some economic issues that I'd rather not discuss in this context, but I would certainly argue that things like globalization, outsourcing of old trade jobs, immigration, um, rapid technology growth, obviously social media, and maybe 9/11, for example. 9/11, I believe, I've written a lot of essays about it. I think it broke I think it popped a bubble in our collective psyche in terms of our perception of security. And I think it caused a bit of a moral panic, because suddenly America was not invincible. They hit our paragon of American virtue and power through the World Trade Center. Then we had a global economic crisis. Now we have just this massive partisan bickering. And to your point, clearly there are conspiracies. Clearly there is corruption. Clearly there is greed affecting behavior. Clearly justice is not always consistently carried out, and those with the most power seem to get away with more. And the corporations cheat everybody and they get bailed out by the taxpayers, and people that commit crimes that have good enough lawyers get off. There are certainly corrupt actors in any human institution, and because of this sort of fevered, frenzied um, moral panic and this increasing diminution of trust for all of our institutions, some of it merited, but much of it not merited. This brings about a lot of this anarchic thinking, this radical behavior in a lot of spaces in our world today. And you know, it wasn't so long ago that there was a battle cry of "burn it all down," and that's still uh, um, a thing today. And people are talking about civil war. A lot of people believe in end times and that all of the the signs are here. A lot of people are, you know, believe in eschatology, you know, end time religious beliefs. All of these factors um, converge in basically, to your point, a lot of people know, and add in social media and all the disinformation age and the internet and social media algorithms feeding us confirmation bias and bad information and alternative media. All these factors converge to where people don't know what to believe and who to trust anymore. So all of that to agree with you that this growing cynicism and this growing distrust has far-ranging consequences, and certainly is a just hotbed for the propagation of conspiracy theories and looking toward alternative voices away from traditional authority figures to find answers. And the problem with that is that you have no greater confidence, and I would argue far less confidence, in listening to anonymous hacks on the internet for your truth. Uh, Even if we argue that the media is less than perfect and could use some reform, the government has a high degree of corruption. We can't trust, you know, a lot of the things that they
That's fair.
say. But when you're looking then towards alternative truth claims, so to answer the question in the simplest form, at the end of the day, as a philosophy teacher, it should be all about burden of proof. It should still always be about whether or not any truth claim holds up under rational and empirical scrutiny. So, regardless of the fact that there may have been actual conspiracies, the point should be whether any given conspiracy theory claim holds up under rational scrutiny. So, a lot of people use the argument, well, there have been conspiracy theories that turned out to be true, in order to justify their belief in any other conspiracy theory, as if the claim is, because there has been a conspiracy in the past, therefore my pet belief must be true. That's
This
not
is
how
where
logic works.
Exactly, but this is where you have to stand up and be a man to yourself. Like with Ryan Upchurch, like I said, I was a fan of his music and stuff like that. This is where you become a man and you become a leader, not a follower. This is where you stand up and make your own decisions. We can obviously see his following, what the ones that are like the cult kind of aspect. We can see what kind of people they are by how they follow that. As a real man, you should have your morals, and as a real man, you should be able to follow and know that what maybe other people say isn't correct. So I think it also takes place with the individual to take, accountability, saying, hey, okay, this isn't really adding up. You know, at the end of the day, it's the individual to look outside and saying, hey, this isn't right. But it seems like his following, especially the cult aspect of it, haven't matured to making their own decisions. You agree with that or no?
Well, I'm a simple person. I like to just simply evaluate truth claims and try to evaluate them on their own merits, one after another. If your beliefs hold up under scrutiny, keep them. If they don't hold up under scrutiny, have the courage to abandon them and acknowledge that you are wrong. The ability to be able to admit that we're wrong should be a virtue, and held up higher in our society. In our society, we don't reward um, admitting we're wrong. We admit strength and conviction and consistency and seeming external strength. And I think that that's the wrong way to go about things. I think that we should uh, just simply evaluate each truth claim on its own merits, and if it holds up under rational scrutiny, you should adopt it at least tentatively. And if somebody makes a claim that doesn't hold up under scrutiny, you should challenge it. And if we're adults acting in good faith, we should be able to um, weigh the value of the competing arguments and be able to come down on the side of that which is most probable and more reasonable, more rational, and all of this stuff about identity and personality. For example, being a strong man, or being macho, or sticking to our convictions, or being, um, you know, um, perseverant. Uh, those are worthwhile qualities in some context, but if you're wrong, you're wrong. And simply being wrong with confidence doesn't make that a good behavior. And we should all be able to call out things that are just factually incorrect, and where our moral reasoning can converge. We should call out immoral behavior, which clearly is harmful. So in the case of Ryan Upchurch's behavior in the Kiely Rodni case, he hasn't met a burden of proof. He has no basis, moral or evidentiary, to stand on, and he's doing great harm, which can be qualified, and we should condemn that. And everything else is something else. So if he's a good guy and he's right on something tomorrow, we should agree with him on that point. And if if he apologizes and seemingly changes his way, we should commend him, and some of us can find forgiveness. Um, this is a fairly consequential mistake he's made, and it would take an awful lot for me to find forgiveness or ever trust this guy as a reasonable leader or somebody that should be considered trustworthy and credible.
I do have to head out of here, but I do want to
Yeah.
say one last thing to everybody in the chat, stuff like that. Everybody that's listening and stuff like that, I do want everybody to try to come together in these dark times and stuff like that. A lot of people put down others, a lot of people judge others and stuff like that, but I think we could all come together. We could be a better nation. I do want to thank Scientific for letting me be on his channel. I appreciate that, guys. But everybody, seriously, don't judge others. Don't care about if they're overweight or they're not the prettiest person. All come together. All right, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Yo. Thanks for coming.
Something, I guess, you were talking about people. I guess I wanted to kind of get your thoughts on people. I guess, do we always have to expect people to publicly admit that they're wrong? I guess that's my thing is nobody likes to be embarrassed,
Of course.
and kind of trying to, the way that I approach it when I hear something outlandish, and I'll, like, well, what does so-and-so have to gain? What do these people have to gain by being lizard people? Or, that's kind of, you see what I'm saying?
Well,
what do we have to gain?
They can never answer these questions, which is why you need to be skeptical about the claims, because the larger the scale of the conspiracy, the harder it is to pull off. We know certain things about conspiracy theories. The more people you're implicating in a conspiracy theory, the less likely it is to be true, because people are incompetent, and it's hard to carry out large-scale plans like this without somebody blowing the whistle, somebody making a mistake, someone revealing a secret in bed with their lover one night that gets out, somebody trying to get their 15 minutes of fame, someone having a moment of regret. We know things about human beings, like human beings cannot keep secrets in large groups of people. So the larger the claim of conspiracy in terms of how many people would have to be complicit, the less likely that the conspiracy theory is true. And then, of course, the other big distinction between a conspiracy theory, which I distinguish from a conspiracy because they're two different phenomena, and since I've covered this topic ad nauseum, conspiracy theories for me is mostly a psychological and sociological phenomena. It's not a it's not a claim about conspiracies. Conspiracies happen, but most conspiracies did not have a conspiracy theory in advance of the conspiracy being exposed, and most conspiracies that are exposed by investigative journalists, law enforcement, insiders, whistleblowers, and just people making mistakes and blowing it. There are not many examples. I mean, the vast majority of conspiracy theories across time have never panned out. So, a priori, statistically speaking, every new conspiracy theory that you're confronted with, you have every reasonable right to discount out of hand as highly improbable. Yes, maybe to Yo's point, you should be open-minded and listen to the claim. Fair enough, but they need to provide evidence. And if they have actual evidence, that evidence should go to the police. Let them investigate it. And if they don't find anything, then this is just another set of ideas that banged around a human brain that didn't pan out to be true. So and there's a massive body of literature supporting conspiracy theory psychology and the evolutionary and psychological and sociological reasons why conspiracy theories are attractive to certain types of people. It often comes from a sense of powerlessness in your life. You don't feel like you're in control. Humans
Right.
need to
Yep.
believe that there's an order to everything, and that things make sense to them. And for many people, the idea that there's 10 guys sitting in a room rolling their mustaches and feverishly petting a black cat, pulling all the strings, in some way is more comforting to them than the contrary, which is that the world is rudderless and ultimately quite chaotic and fairly arbitrary. So people prefer to have simple answers to complex phenomena. Conspiracy theories is just one of the sorts of simple answers that people invent to feel like they understand what's going on. And so the idea that people are all sitting around trying to manipulate us and kill us and, monopolize the world's resources and all these things, the scale of conspiracy that these people are talking about would be on the scale of something never before seen in history. I mean, for those things to be true, you're talking about hundreds, thousands, maybe tens of thousands of people all being complicit in these long-term conspiracies, and nobody's ever wanted to write a book and get their 15 minutes of fame. Nobody's ever blown it and just gotten drunk and revealed a secret to somebody, an undercover cop. I mean, it beggars belief to accept. And then you have things like, like you said, reptiloids. I mean, come on. So again, it's just a simple burden of proof thing. It's just bring me the evidence, bro. And until you bring me the evidence, I apply the null hypothesis, which is that I presume that your claim is not true unless you give me very, very, very good reasons to accept it as true.
Yeah, some of the things they just sound they're just so outlandish. And I guess I even find there are times in life where, you know I've seen where people make this big conspiracy out of something, and it's actually, it's something that's kind of small. Like, I have cattle dogs. I've got 3 of them. So obviously, I'm a little bit more into training. I'm a little bit more into, dealing with dogs with, attitudes and stuff like that, that their feelings don't get easily hurt. And it's kind of like when you're working with dogs, and I don't have kids, I have dogs, so I, equate a lot of this stuff. But it's kind of like like sometimes people will like open the door and lean across, the dog won't go through because you're exerting, spatial pressure on them. And if you just step behind the door, it's like it's such a simple fix, but people are like baffled by it. It's like sometimes
Well,
the answers are simple, but we don't always have the answer.
well,
So
well,
it's
that's that. Yeah,
it's
right. That's the other. The point I always make is that humans evolved to seek out answers to complex problems that they have to deal with in their environment to survive and to get the things they want. So we evolved to need answers for things. And what happens is that this need for answers is so profound in humans that if we don't have good answers, we will simply invent them. And we
Yes.
will actually feel more comfortable having a wrong answer even than having no answer at all. So
Yeah.
when you see the way that Ryan thinks about these things, he's like, in my brain, I can only see two possibilities, and it must be one or the other. And he's just not smart enough or
No, I mean,
imaginative enough to
I'm
recognize that there can be more than two possibilities. So we tend to again look for simple these simple answers, and then we constantly make what he does, which is called the false dichotomy, where we say it's either this or that. And the problem with that is that in most of complex phenomena, there are far more options than just two. There are
yeah,
true
I mean,
dichotomies. I
that's
mean, the light switch is either on or off. That's a true dichotomy. Or something
right.
is either, I could say, uh, somebody is either you, I don't know exactly what your name is, I'll call you Unseen. I can say somebody is unseen or not unseen. So, not unseen would mean everybody else that's not you. That would be the
Yeah.
proper way to create a dichotomy. Mathematically, it's X and X naught. But as soon as you're saying the only two possibilities are X and Y, if you've ignored that there's possibility Z and possibility
Right.
W, then you have oversimplified the problem, and then this gentleman here, Mr. Upchurch, thinks that then he's identified the only two possible answers, and then he gives you his opinion on which one he thinks it is. And the reality is that in all of these cases, there are far more options which he hasn't even contemplated, and far more likely explanations than he's contemplated. And he thinks he's just this brilliant deductive logician, and he's not. He has no idea what he's talking about. He knows nothing about formal logic. He knows nothing about the principle of burden of proof. He knows nothing about any of the relevant domains in true crime. He knows nothing about the protocol of any of these exercises. He's just whistling Dixie, just like every other Google sleuth that thinks they, with a keyboard and Google, they can solve the world's problems. And he's just, again, suffering from Dunning-Kruger, overestimating his intellect and his intelligence and his capacity, and just a simple overconfidence bias. But his followers believe that he's spitting wisdom um, because of their tribal loyalty to him, their cult-like um, loyalty to him. For many people, he's a star. He's a celebrity. We get into this sort of godlike worship where we treat these people like deities. We live vicariously through them. We want to be them. He's got cars, and he's decently good looking apparently, and he's young, and he's got all the stuff, and so people go, he must be right because he's got all the stuff. And that's not how reason works.
No,
Somebody
he's lucky.
somebody is not right because they got stuff. That's just not how it works.
Yeah, and okay, so how is, and like I think I said in one of my comments, I try to teach myself stuff, I only have a high school education, but I still try to teach myself stuff. How is an attribution error, would that be like the false dichotomy, or
Well,
is
sure.
there
I
a
mean,
difference?
Well, I mean, absolutely, false attribution is similar, and it gets back to what I've been talking about in a couple of my last videos, which is basically apophenia, which is that we see patterns. There are patterns everywhere in nature, and
Right.
another way that we evolved was to try to make meaning out of the patterns. But because we're a pattern matching animal, doesn't mean that we always attribute the correct meaning to the phenomena that we experience. We have sampling errors, we have sensory limitations, we have cognitive shortcomings, and our brain in many ways sort of conspires against our ability to be rational, because we really didn't evolve to be a intellectually rational animal. We're not. There's a old idea called Homo economicus, which is an old idea that humans are essentially rational, And once you provide them with the evidence and the reason, they will simply accept it. So this was the great hope of science and the sort of Enlightenment movement in Europe in the 16th, 17th, and 18th century, where it was the first time that we attempted to go away from wish thinking and religious authority toward the authority of evidence and reason and science. And the expectation was that humans were rational, and as soon as we stopped engaging in wishful thinking, we would just improve and progress at a linear rate. But we unfortunately, what we've learned about human psychology and evolutionary biology for the last 100 years demonstrates that we are anything but rational. We are consistently irrational. And I mean, I can show you a host of experiments where I can prove to you that you're irrational. I can prime your brain to be irrational. And so there's all of these evolved reasons that our brains conspire against us being right, being rational, being reasonable. And we're also a tribal animal, which means that most of our beliefs are formed and cemented based on our sense of identity and our sense of tribal affiliation, our sense of national affiliation. So all of our tribes also have a lot to do with why we believe the things that we do, not necessarily because we've actually evaluated those beliefs and believe that they hold up under rational scrutiny. And we're all, unfortunately, we just have to sort of accept that we're an irrational animal that can be rational, but we are not consistently very rational.
Well, I guess this kind of, okay, so I have this thing, and it's like, and again, this could be my own, pattern, that I string together. But I've done some REBT therapy, rational emotive behavioral therapy. I can't
Okay.
remember the name of the guy, but that, made it up. But he's kind of got it narrowed down to, there are only 3 categories. This is crazy. There are only 3 categories of irrational thought, that they just come from one of 3 beliefs. I don't know. And it's kind of like people think I'm crazy, but it's almost like, I almost kind of think that, like, we need to teach this stuff in high school, like teach these kids to sit down and practice mindfulness, emotional.
We certainly need to teach critical thinking at earlier and earlier ages, because these kids are exposed to misinformation earlier than they have ever been at a scale that we've never seen before. So unfortunately, the older generation may be sort of kaput in terms of being able to just generate the critical thinking skills out of thin air that they need to be able to better evaluate the bombardment of truth claims that they're exposed to every day. But certainly, generationally speaking, we're going to have to teach our kids how to be better critical thinkers and more skeptical. We're going to have to make a lot of progress on, I think, policing information, so that people do have to pay a price for spreading factually incorrect information. And I think these companies will have to take on a greater role and do a better job of that. And facilities like fact checking will need to be improved. The AI will have to come into play. And it's a really, really monumental task to be able to police the amount of misinformation.
No, what do you mean when you say, what is AI?
Artificial intelligence.
Oh, okay.
So sort of
and how are you thinking that it can play a role in addressing this?
Well, artificial intelligence holds up the promise to be basically self-educating software that can improve on whatever the task that you put it to do. So, and it's obviously AI is going to take on an increasingly larger role in our society in a way that might be analogous to robots. I mean, we all, I think, understand, the long time conversation about robots replacing a lot of the things that humans do. and to a great extent, that age is already here. But the sort of next phase is AI, which is sort of self-teaching artificial intelligence. And of course, they now we recognize that there's also a great threat from AI getting out of control because it's being developed in parallel all over the world, and there's no sort of oversight board, there's no ethics board,
Right.
there's nothing controlling this development. And they've had really big international conferences where they get together the smartest minds in the world, and they say, guys, we need to have some protocol in place here. We need to have some rules.
Yeah.
We need to be careful, because then we get into the this sort of Terminator stuff where AI then suddenly learns one day that we are no longer relevant, we're obsolete, and it decides that part of its job, in order to be effective and efficient, should be to get rid of us ignorant, polluting, exploiting human beings. So
Right.
yeah,
Well, I
you guys,
mean,
you guys are all going to throw out the better sci-fi references, uh,
well, there's
Space
actually,
Odyssey and Terminator and all that stuff. But this stuff is actually real. I mean, we really do need to have a concern about being proactive before AI gets to a level of sophistication where all of our systems are being run by AI, and we don't even know how it works anymore. We don't even know. We might not know how to turn it off. It
there,
becomes then so independent that we lose control.
well, there's, what is it? And I apologize if I'm getting back around to true crime too much, but there is actually and this, what you're saying makes me think of, there is a reporter and he's in Indiana and he actually developed a program for tracking serial killers, which I kind of thought was interesting. He actually ended up finding a serial killer. I think the name of the podcast is called Algorithm, but I think that's kind of like, it's a
Oh
very
yeah,
positive way of
a,
using that kind of
oh
artificial intelligence. Who
oh
is,
yeah,
can I teach you?
AI is definitely going to be relevant in law enforcement and
Yeah, but
surveillance and all sorts of things. Absolutely.
well,
I
I
mean,
mean,
this.
you see so many things that were developed for the positive being abused. So it's kind of like, I have no idea how that could be abused. I can't think of it because that's not my mind. I at least think that's not my mindset.
Well, that's why people are trying to come together and talk about it sooner rather than later,
Right.
because it would be easy to become complacent and just not recognize what it could become. It's impossible to predict the future with any degree of confidence. Certainly, the longer you move into the future, less likely we're going to be able to comprehend it in the same way that if you were in the 5th century BC and you were presented, what's the old Asimov line, any sufficiently distant technology in the future would be indistinguishable from magic.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, but it seems like our country, and I don't know why this is, and I don't know. I really honestly, I've only looked at America, and maybe it's like this in other countries. I haven't really looked at it close enough, but it seems like we're always kind of reacting and behind the eight ball.
yeah.
And I don't
Well,
even, it's like, why is it like that? And
Well,
yeah,
it's because of the rate of change. For example, there's a futurist named Ray Kurzweil who has a couple really interesting hypotheses. One, which is surely wrong, is called the singularity, and he predicted, probably already 10, 15 years ago, he predicted that consciousness would be able to be digitized by the year 2027, and we would be able to basically convert our brain into digital form and then upload it into a virtual universe in a computer, and we could essentially uh, be eternal and live forever in a virtual world. It brings up all sorts of interesting concepts about what consciousness is and things like that. But he's clearly wrong, at least in terms of his time frame. We're not going to be anywhere near digitizing consciousness by 2027, but we may very well be somewhere in the distance. But he's got another hypothesis, to your point, which is that he's done, I don't know if you know what Moore's Law is.
I don't.
Moore's Law was a pattern that had been identified in terms of the processing capacity of computer chips, in that they were consistently doubling in size every 18 months. So
Okay.
everyone believed that this might be something like a law of physics, something about the nature of the universe, that um, silicone progress, chip microchip progress would always follow this rule, that it would basically, we would double the capacity of our microchips every 18 months. And that held true for a ridiculous amount of time. It's now been broken. Moore's law doesn't really apply, but it's a bit, it might still apply. It just might not be 18 months. It might be, we have to work through the data and look over a longer period of time. But Kurzweil did some really interesting research where he looked at other technologies, not just microchips. He looked at transportation. He looked at agriculture. He looked at all sorts of other technology across time, and found that Moore's law might actually be applicable to all other forms of technology as well, where basically this synergistic effect of technology and our innovative capacity simply allows us to, every time we expect to hit some bottleneck in terms of improving our progress, we find a solution, and we continue to break through all of these barriers and continue to advance technology at a just sort of an unimaginable rate. And so he made this calculation that if we were to, basically the argument is that the rate of change is exponential, which would explain why we never catch up, and also why people today experience more anxiety, because technology seems to increase at an ever quicker pace relative to when we were younger and in prior generations. The world as we knew it stayed relatively more stable compared with this new generation. And then every new 5-10 years, again, the rates of acceleration are such that it causes a certain amount of anxiety, because everything we know or believe to be true then suddenly gets, goes through massive upheaval. And, first it was, cell phones, and then suddenly it was the internet, and, we could have flying cars, and who knows? We can't predict what the future will be. But Kurzweil's hypothesis was that all of progress is essentially follows an exponential cycle, and that rate continues to increase, and that basically the argument that, and then I'll stop, that's mind-blowing, is he argues that if you knew everything there is to know today, all of human knowledge, if you knew all of it today, everything that we've accumulated since the beginning of time, the argument is in 5 years, you will only then know half of everything that we know, which is
It
very
almost sounds
frightening.
like the iPhone effect.
Well, yeah, just this massive rate of change, and it's in that sense, our little brains are just not capable of being able to know what the world will look like in 20 or 50 or 100 years, let alone whatever 500,000 years. In any case, yeah, Kurzweil is a very interesting guy with some very interesting ideas. I think maybe I'm going to ask, is there anybody else who'd like to come up and talk about anything else? I don't know if you want to go up to the Upchurch cancel. I can talk about science and philosophy all day long, but we might want to go back to the crux of the chat. Anything else, NC, you want to say
I'm
before?
sorry. I'm sorry, I got you all off track. I'm really good at doing that.
No, I love it. Believe me, I love nothing more than just long, fun, intellectual conversations and exchanging with other people who are curious and like to have chats.
Yeah. So, what did you say? It was Moore something?
Moore's Law?
Moore's Law. Morris or Moore's?
Moore's, Moore.
Okay. Yeah, he probably wouldn't like my abbreviated iPhone effect. But it is. It's kind of the same. It's not, something everybody would remember.
It's just, yeah,
So,
stuff changes quickly. So, anybody else want to come up and say
yeah, I'm
hi?
going to hop down. You have a good
Okay,
evening.
thank you,
Thank you.
and thank you so much for coming. It was a pleasure talking with you, Unseen.
Thank
Come,
you.
come say
Bye.
hi again, and give a hug and a kiss to your cute little dog for me too, please.
Oliver. Yeah, my husband
Bye,
calls him
Oliver.
Oliver Shrimpkin from when he was little.
Nice.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. So, everybody, if you don't mind, we're only 2 hours. I think we have some more in us. Is everybody having a good time? I hope you all are. I'm going to get a refill of my cocktail. I hope we didn't get too off track, and if anybody wants to come back, I usually write handy-dandy notes from your teaching, Skeptic. Well, thank you, Rachel. You're making me blush. I just hope it's not too tangential. I do like to stick to the topic, but, these are free-for-alls. As soon as you bring up somebody on stage, you have no idea what they want to talk about, and I will talk about anything. This is what I do. I teach science and philosophy. I love all this stuff, and I love to talk about it for anyone who's curious and has something to add. So I will be right back. 1 second, please. So I'm back. AK, come up and talk to me. I'll get lonely if you don't. Or Platty, come say hi. Or Jen. I have this makeshift microphone hookup, and because it's not easily removed, I just realized any time. Nick, you want to come up and talk to me? I really enjoyed our chat the other day. Anyway, my little clip, because I can't take it off. I have to unplug the microphone and drag the wire if I want to go do something, which is really annoying. And I know I'm going to step over it, and I'm going to fall on my face, and then my cat's going to laugh at me, and I'm going to be embarrassed, and I'll probably break the computer because I'm dumb that way. Come on, who's going to come say hi? Somebody come keep me company, because I want to know. I want to be told all of the reasons why my moral reasoning and my rational and my case that I made tonight that Ryan Upchurch deserves to be canceled was bad. I want everybody to tell me what I have not mentioned, what I have not noticed, where my logic has run afoul. You guys make me smoke and drink too much. When I'm alone, I don't drink and I smoke much less. Your internet sucks, Nick? That's a shame. Sammy, you want to come up and chat with me? Hi, Earth dot intruders. Very interesting name. Looks very fancy. Earth dot intruders. Sounds like a, I don't know, sort of a Marvel superheroes kind of thing. Wolf Girl, you never managed to get your, you never managed to get your internet fixed, right? Because I really would love to have you come up. Patricia, would you like to come say hi? I see you all the time. She don't come and talk to me. Dum dum dum. I'll look forward to that, yo. Thank you for coming up. It's a pleasure. It's the connection in Alaska. It's that damn Alaskan internet. Everyone knows Alaskan internet needs to be improved. Who do we talk to? How do we get your Alaskan internet infrastructure upgraded? Yeah, I am lonely. I did my whole little spiel. Now I don't know what to talk about. I thought I made my case. Maybe I didn't. I certainly hope I triggered the Cretan Squad and Ryan. And I just love the idea of hashtag cancel Ryan Upchurch because I could see him losing his shit. I mean, of course, he would just laugh and say, "Who are these losers? I don't care about these losers," whatever. I'm richer than them and they have nothing. Yeah, I'm living 100 meters from the beach, buddy. I've got quite a nice life. No jealousy on my part. Hardly. Jen, are you feeling better?
Can you okay. Can you hear
Are you
me?
feeling better? I can. Are you feeling better? You don't sound too great.
No, I'm not feeling great, honestly. My throat's pretty like feels quite raw, but I think it's um calmed down quite a bit now. So to say hello and apologies if anybody's getting pissed off with me in the it's kind of no
Are you wielding your
no
band hammer again?
oh, a little bit, but also I'm just getting kind of the sort of double standards that people are exhibiting with sort of say are pro cancelling him or whatever, and then would be you hiding someone else when they've said something bad or oh my god. Anyway, can't appease everyone. But I just thought I would say hello, and he was getting pissed off. Really, I don't
Well,
have
I'm
much
sorry.
to say. I've been in my pajamas for about a week now.
What did you think of the case and how clearly, there are cases where canceling someone is not only normal and ordinary and something we've always done, it is the absolutely right thing to do. I mean, if a company is poisoning its customers and they have a long track record where the federal health authorities are not doing their job and this company is not changing and people are dropping dead from poisonous food because of their processes or their ingredients, we should try to cancel them, right? We should collectively make them pay social consequences. That is a justifiable example of where cancel culture is the right thing to do. I mean, I know that we tend to mean something different when we say cancel culture, but there are some efforts at canceling people. Like for example, I don't think I used the argument. If you think that cancel culture, if there is a physics conference with world-renowned physicists up on stage discussing their interpretations of quantum mechanics. And Bob bought a ticket to listen. I mean, if Bob tries to run up and grab the microphone and spew his opinions about quantum mechanics. Somebody drags him off stage. Somebody says, "Get this bum out of here." There's a reason he didn't get invited to that physics conference. He hasn't been canceled because he wasn't invited to the physics conference. He simply knows nothing about physics. And if he thinks that him being dragged off stage when he tries to grab the microphone or speak his mind is cancel culture, then he's an idiot.
Yeah.
There are just all sorts of ways in there's all areas of our world where people get canceled. They don't have the right, they don't have the privilege of being able to step up and give their opinion. No one cares. They're not qualified. They're not considered relevant, and that is not an infringement on their free speech or their right to an opinion. Simply, they didn't earn the right to speak on that topic in that forum, for example, or on that, in that area of expertise.
I think it's really got to be reasons based, and I think it's really got to be because if somebody is doing something that has negative, you are morally obliged to stand up and try and prevent it. But I think it's kind of, what's that thing?
Correct.
The trolley problem where they have the trolley and it's running. You could either save one person or a group of people, or you can just actually stand by as a bystander and have no moral implications at all because it was out of it's the same kind of idea. You should be putting yourself forward, stand up for what is morally correct and what is going to have the best, and if you see damage actively being in the happening, you should step in to try and
correct. We have a moral obligation to stand up when harm is being done. And
faithfully.
So, but
Scottish, I'm just not very well.
But there are, I completely concede, examples of what we refer to as cancel culture that are harmful when people act like a mob and over either something trivial or something wrong or something that is not inappropriate, and then these tribal mobs really do go for the throat, and they go for the kill, and it's not justifiable. So that's why I said again, it's important to look at each case in isolation. There are plenty. I mean, mobs are a thing, and mobs can believe that they're righteous.
What these people are
doing the right thing, and they can be wrong. And then they can be dangerous.
That's why people are essentially like the 1600s version of a witchfinder general, and then you've got all of these mobs with pitchforks that are the gullible sort of like.
Well, and that's a perfect example. The witch hunts were cancel cultures that were clearly not morally or rationally justifiable. That's absolutely cancel culture. What's the period where the Inquisition? The Inquisition, that was cancel culture. That was cancel culture in its worst manifestation. So we've had cancel culture forever, and in some cases, the mob justification was unjustifiable. Was morally wrong. Was rationally wrong, empirically wrong, factually wrong, and so clearly there's all sorts of negative aspects and negative examples of mob culture, which is extremely harmful and dangerous. I mean, the January 6th insurrection is cancel culture. Cancel the election, and based on a faulty premise, or at least they haven't been able to support it. That's cancel culture as well. So I'm going to bring up somebody sitting in the back, and let's see.
It's like nationalism and patriotism are basically blind loyalty is not a good thing necessarily, because it can be dangerous.
So BTIM.
Oh, you can call me Tim.
Tim,
How you doing?
how you doing, Tim? How are you this evening?
I'm good. I'm good. You had a friend of mine burn a proof on, so I figured I'd jump on too.
Sounds
So,
good. You have a bit of an accent, Tim. Where you calling in from?
New York.
Where are you from originally?
New York.
Really?
Yeah, I am from New York. That's what a lot of people say. But I am from New York, Brooklyn to be exact.
I'm sorry. Now that I hear you more, now I hear the New York accent. I completely misheard you. I thought you were English or from the UK somewhere. Now you sound like you're from New York. I used to hang out in the South Bronx, Pelham Bay, and my father used to live in the Lower East Side on Houston Avenue B. He's an artist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I just wanted to call, like, I don't think it's really cancel culture to cancel a guy who's basically threatens multiple channels, multiple people's safety, and then basically continues to do it to this day. He hasn't deleted any of his posts, and he's actually reinstated a video, Zero Tolerance, to like the one like Zero Proof one again. And he keeps on with these conspiracy theories constantly. And it's like, I think it's appropriate that YouTube bans him because he's basically doing an Alex Jones, and the only difference is they haven't found him yet. That's the truth.
Correct.
I think the thing is, as well, is a lot
That's my take.
of people don't understand defamation. Not only you have to be saying something people don't that isn't true, but you are saying isn't true. And I truly believe that he does know that, but I think that's why he was saying that it was all fake, as if he could kind of, he was changing up his stories so that it was talking about. Yet somehow people were still blindly agreeing with everything he said. It was so weird. I think it was him trying to what's the word, like mitigate recourse, coming back at him from the stuff he'd been saying, like
as I told you in my video, I thought when he came out and said it's all unreal, that none of it's real, I think that was his effort to mitigate his awareness that he might have some legal liability, and I don't know, but I have the impression that he didn't think through the consequences of then accusing not only the police of being involved in a massive cover-up, but also ultimately accusing the Rodni family of lying and not actually grieving and not actually having a dead daughter, in which case then he ultimately became Alex Jones, and it's it's Sandy Hook 2.0 light. And I'm not sure he thought about it. I think he might have just done it as a Band-Aid approach to remove his legal exposure vis-a-vis Iqmel, Zaname, and Ronnie, because then I think he was going to try to hide behind the defense of they can't be guilty of a crime if no crime has been committed. Therefore, you can't accuse me of defamation because there was no crime and this is all a hoax. And I think he didn't think through that because, first of all, as I said in my video, I don't even think that's a valid legal argument. You don't need an actual fatality in order to show that you defamed someone's character. It just
but did you ever hear of the Sargon of Akkad lawsuit? Like what happened?
I know who Sargon of Akkad is. Not a fan.
But did you hear about the fact that like he was sued because he clipped a video and then he just didn't edit and he just he just changed the title and basically he won the fair use case. So basically they basically state that even if you like have a 2-minute video and you just have changed the title, like the title, you can win a fair use case. And he actually, I think, got legal costs for that. And and the reason why I bring that up is
that's not the spirit of fair use at all. You need to make meaningful changes.
It's more educational,
yeah.
Like fair use should be for like educational reasons to prove a point, like news. Like the news can use any kind of footage if it's reporting on something.
That's my point. Basically, when for instance the burden of proof video, it's kind of like he's doing the same thing where he puts the title and just puts up the video, and that's pretty much the same thing. He's basically transforming it to be a defamation piece against burden of proof. Maybe that's my thought process on it. I might be wrong, but That's what I was thinking in my head a little bit.
Yeah, and I don't know
Sometimes
enough
he
about the
doesn't.
case. I know he got
Sometimes he does it not.
humiliated running for office in the UK.
Yeah.
I think he ran for UKIP and made a complete and utter fool out of himself.
Absolutely.
Which I was quite happy about. I experienced some schadenfreude from that.
Yeah, it was quite disastrous. He was like the Black Death of every single political movement he's ever been a part of. But that's
he's another one that overestimated his intelligence. And I remember when Sargon was all the news, and I think everybody was just impressed by his rather upper class British accent vis-a-vis a bunch of dumb Yanks. And I think they really, again, created a cult of personality around him that was not justified by his knowledge of political philosophy.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really take much to impress people if we've just watched the Ryan case,
There's a follower for any would-be cult leader, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Of course.
At least one, and probably more like hundreds. I mean, so every once in a while you fall on some, well, I mean, all the time in the true crime ghetto, but you just listen to these people and you say, why does anyone listen to them, let alone, have 2,000, 5,000, 10,000, 20,000 loyal followers? I mean, you can't justify it by the quality of their rhetoric, or their character or the quality of their arguments. So it just speaks to, I do think there's also something, which is that people also look for their own people. So
echo chambers.
That's going to sound a bit mean, but if you're sort of of a particular category of people, you might find that somebody with a voice who in some way you identify with, who seems like you,
Sense.
then
Like
somehow takes on authority.
Does pay. Yeah, like classism does pay, like how people flock together and stand for the same value. How?
But do you think?
I'm
sorry.
No, like Upchurch is essentially a lower class hillbilly hero. Sorry.
Yeah. But do you think the algorithm does it? Because, I think the algorithm, a lot of people just watch the same thing. They watch a lot of stuff Ryan Upchurch watches, and he watches the same conspiracy. And it might be brainwashing him, and it's brainwashing his audience because the algorithm is doing it. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, no, the algorithm problem in social media is really bad because we already know the problem of human confirmation bias, and these algorithms feed that confirmation bias, so they know your demographic, they know what you consume, they know your purchasing patterns, they know where you live, they know your age, they know your political affiliation, they know all these things about you, and this fancy schmancy AI then feeds you exactly what you already believe, and then prevents you from seeing alternative views, and then only reinforces these tribal affiliations and creates these really hardened silos, which are really hard to get out of for these people. But for all of us, it does it to all of us.
Yeah, that's what stuck out to me when he basically put the Anne Heche thing, where he's talking about how she's not real and it was fake, and you could just easily just Google everything about it, and just that just kind of put me out there that he definitely watches all these conspiracy theories and stuff like that, and he might be a little out there because of that, but that's my thought process.
Definitely bringing in the Anne Heche thing as well. I felt like that was him trying diversion because he knew he was losing his grip on what he was saying, something else that was a conspiracy to kind of rally alongside, and thanks to everybody that's saying nice things in the chat.
I thought I had sort of an idea of why he might have done that, because otherwise I was like, so the link is what? They're both female. There was a car.
They're both blonde.
And
both
they were
cars.
They're both dead, and therefore what?
Well, yeah, I can read his community posts, because his new tactic is to post everything on community posts and link it instead of making videos to hide himself.
Oh, okay.
So like his community post 5 days ago was basically, I'm going to read his terrible grammar. So if I sound like an idiot, don't blame me. Wow.
Sorry, IQ, I can't
Yeah.
help you. If you have a low IQ, I can't help you.
Yeah.
Sorry.
He says, oh, wow. Yeah, all this info is horseshit. All of it, all these random stories coming out that lead to nowhere. No answers. Nobody knows nothing. Hell, the Anne Hesh lady isn't even coming up as anyone. I found numerous pictures on Google, same person, different bullshit, names. I am done with this internet crime shit. It's all false info running around in circles. Bunch of photoshopped pictures and face swaps attached to GoFundMe pages. Back to my regular life. 100% this shit is waste of time.
He's the one that made up this rabbit hole. He's the one that created this whole tangent, this like insane rabbit hole of conspiracies. He's the one that's fucking made it up, and him and his audience are propagating and keeping it going, and then he's just adding on to it by
And the other thing too, he always says things like nobody knows, none of this is real. These things, he just completely asserts them, and it's kind of like, no, actually, you know what? Actually, there are probably people that know things, you just don't know them. So because you don't know something, don't assume that no one knows something. So he always does that. We don't know this, we don't know that, there's no evidence for this, blah, blah. No, there is evidence. Kiely Rodni existed. If you went and were an investigative journalist and you were a documentarian, you would go to her hometown, and there's got to be a massive wealth of Kiely Rodni everywhere. Every street corner, there's somebody that saw her, they hung out with her, their kids went to school with her. There's got to be just a monster mountain of wealth proving Kiely Rodni existed.
If
and
she
this
was
dickhead,
a crisis actor and wasn't
this dickhead,
a real person, how long ago did they have to plan? How long ago were they planning this exact event for this to not be real? Like,
well, before GoFundMe.
Do you really think that people that knew the Rodni family, if she didn't have a daughter who now has disappeared and therefore is considered dead by all of the people in that family's environment, do you really think if she didn't have a daughter, those people wouldn't be going up on live TV and going, I don't know what this Rodni family is talking about, but I've known that family for 40 years. They live down the street from me, and I never saw a daughter. I don't know these people. I don't know why these people are saying they had a daughter and she died. There would be a million witnesses coming forward to discredit the family's claim that they had a daughter named Kiely and who died.
Yeah, but I have a question for you. You consider yourself someone who likes philosophy and stuff like that. Okay, I'm going to read you a bit of his philosophy on time.
I saw one video that he made on philosophy, and it gave me an aneurysm. Oh my God!
I'm going to read you a quote. Quote. He has like a picture of a tree with clocks on it. Time wasn't created, it was planted. I just as a tree has limbs, clocks have hands, both seeded in society, but only one has a seed. But in the end, time puts us in the dirt with its own hand, as if we were the seed that created the tree. Upchurch.
Yeah, I mean, this is called, in my space, it's called word salad, and it's called bad poetry, because everybody once in a while, because I saw a video where he tried to be a philosopher, and as somebody who teaches philosophy and does a lot of philosophy writing, it just hurts me. It's like, dude, you've never read a page of philosophy in your entire life. There's thousands of years of documented philosophy written by people who are 1,000 times smarter than you will ever be, who had a wiser moment.
Not Plato, he's Panto.
Yeah, I mean, the guys, it was just like bad armchair philosophy. I mean, because everybody fashions themselves a poet or a philosopher, and it's just, I mean, you don't just invent this stuff. There's actually, it's based on reasoning. Philosophers spend their entire life, it's just formalized thinking. That's all that philosophy really is. It's just, you spend your whole life working through arguments and trying to test them for internal consistency and coherence with other ideas and knowledge that we have. And the modern philosopher needs to also be literate in all the sciences so that they're not just an old armchair philosopher who's making stuff up when the actual modern science has already rejected. A lot of philosophy, like my favorite thinkers are, Aristotle and Socrates and Plato, among many others. And most of the things that they said, they were novel and profound at the time, given our knowledge of the world at the time. But these people were pseudoscience, woo-woo, word salad relative to what we now know about physics. Aristotle was wrong about almost everything, and yet Aristotle is held up as probably, along with Newton, probably the smartest person of all time. But it was in the context, in our complete and utter ignorance, he was profoundly brilliant.
Yeah.
But already by the standard of the year 1000, let alone the year 1500, let alone the year 2200, he would be considered, just completely ignorant.
Yeah.
But by those standards, he was brilliant, and his fashion of working through philosophical questions, and of course, his contribution of formal logic. Logic is called Aristotelian logic for a reason. He invented it, but we've made him, vast improvements on it. So most of our greatest thinkers, Isaac Newton, for example, was a pseudoscience lunatic. He believed in alchemy, and he believed in, sort of black magic. He believed in all sorts of things.
He was like Alistair
completely incoherent.
Crowley.
Yeah, but he also invented optics and calculus in over a summer vacation. Arguably the smartest person in history, but by modern standards, he was wrong about a lot of things. We always talk about we stand in the quote of actually Isaac Newton is, we stand on the shoulders of giants. So we accumulate knowledge. Knowledge is mostly cumulative, and so we learn from them, but then we improve upon that, and then we get smarter.
Well, books are kind of
unless you're Ryan Upchurch, and then you've got some form of
Ryan
learning.
Upchurch. Ryan Upchurch doesn't actually need to read a book. Now, one of my favorite comments in my 10 years of teaching science and philosophy on Facebook, I had a kid one day, one of my favorite comments. He came up, he's probably like a 20-year-old kid or something like that, and he said, "I've never read any books, but I don't need books because I've been able to figure everything out on my own." So this 20-year-old kid, who's just too young to know how ridiculous he sounds, he believes that he has intuited all of human knowledge inside his skull without the need for informing himself by 5,000 years
like
of
you figured out how to stick
knowledge.
Your dick in something, you know what I mean?
Yeah, he just intuited quantum mechanics.
Yeah, and I think like books are kind of like prosthetics, like they're just like from beyond the graves. They're like thoughts and processes of people who are long dead, and we just kind of attach them to ourselves to learn. That's what I always thought of books.
Well, there's good books and bad books, but
obviously, but that's generally it. It's just thoughts from long past dead people, and we just kind of attach to ourselves, and we grab what we can from it, and some we don't. Most of it we don't remember, and we just learn and further our knowledge on it. But most people don't.
Well, yeah, it's just human knowledge is generally accumulative, so it's additive. Generally speaking, we add more to our knowledge with time, but sometimes, sort of in the Kuhnian sense, we have what's called like a paradigm shift, where we just fundamentally learn something about nature which really overturns a massive body of what we once considered knowledge. And this is often used by the anti-science crowd. It's called the "science has been wrong before" argument. So basically, they argue that if science has ever been wrong before, therefore everything we believe today must be wrong, and therefore my pet theory must be right. And that's just not how it works. It's called the Galileo gambit.
There's a lot of that. Sorry about around the vaccines, saying that correct, because in the 80s or 70s, women were given a morning sickness in what's that thing with the small arms?
I don't know. I heard about the polio vaccine. Like most.
I know what you're talking about. You're talking about
thalidomide.
Yeah.
Thalidomides. Okay.
Yeah. So they were using that as an trust the vaccine, and I was
that's very often used in the science has been wrong before argument. And actually, did you know that thalidomide is still used and very beneficial in particular applications? I'd have to go look, but thalidomide actually has medicinal therapeutic value in a particular domain. We just no longer give it to women at a particular stage of their pregnancy, and that's where we made the mistake. But thalidomide actually has therapeutic value, just not given to women for, I forget what it was used for. I mean, that's one of my problems, is that I have a terrible memory. But it was used for fertility or for, I forget.
Morning sickness.
Morning sickness? Okay.
Wow. So, but do you think, like, Ryan Upchurch, just going back to Ryan Upchurch, do you think he's like a privileged content creator because he's a songwriter, and like that's like one of those song channels, and usually they're pretty good with like striking channels. You get more of an authority if you can strike channels, if you're like actually with a manager and you just do songwriting. And maybe that's why he's like not being like hit by anything.
Oh, well, I mean, obviously I can't know. What I do think, though, is that the larger the channel, the less likely that they go after you, because you're a cash cow for them. So in the case of Chris McDonough engaged in defamation, and he got his channel actually removed. And he got it reinstated, and he was working with YouTube, and a lot of people were, very skeptical as to how he got it back. Clearly, he must have made an arrangement with them that something to the effect of, okay, I will delete all of these defamatory videos, and I will no longer engage in referring to Nomadic Trek. It was in the Nomadic Trek case. I will no longer defame people, or at least I will no longer talk about that individual. And it seemed like they made a deal with him, but clearly it seems like, it doesn't take a super genius to presume that YouTube is going to tend to want to reinstate a channel that is a large channel that generates a lot of revenue for them, as long as they're willing to at least pay lip service to the editor board. So probably just kiss their ass. And
technically, because YouTube is a private company as well, even though they have terms of service guidelines, they can go against their own community guidelines. They just use them to, like, at the time, right? Like, they don't have to, not everything has to be consistent with community guidelines or terms of service. They can just make it they want to strike and use it as example, but they don't have to follow their own terms of service.
Yeah, I mean, that's unfortunate.
It's a private. I mean, it's their company. They can do whatever the hell they want. We obviously can't be a fly on a wall. Now, they have a vested interest to at least present as if they are consistent, and that they have consistent rules and principles that they adhere to, but that we don't get to be a fly on the wall in the board level meetings where they discuss, hey, go easy on these creators, go harder on these creators. We don't have the luxury of knowing that. We unfortunately just have to presume that they are acting at a principle. Now, obviously, to a certain extent, companies do pay business consequences for being inconsistent in their application of their own rules. People don't like inconsistency. They don't like it when companies appear like they're being insincere and not adhering to their principles. But that they often do not adhere to these principles because they have a vested interest in maximizing profit, obviously.
Yeah. But what did you think of another thing? I had a question. I didn't know if I caught it in the beginning. What did you watch the Zav girl with him with the AWP where like
I had stopped watching after my last video because I just get sick watching these idiots. But I did go back and watch that today in preparation for this video. We should probably talk about it. I also went and watched his last video after he claimed that it looks like he deleted the one that I had made a video on where he said it was all fake, but then he made another one the next day, which is essentially the same.
Yeah, zero. Yeah,
the zero one. That's the one I watched today from him, and it was basically the same as the one that he deleted. And it does beg the question, why did he even delete it if then he just went back and doubled down on the same exact claim? But I don't know what his reasoning was. He also claimed he was going to quit. But the Zav one, I mean, the obsequiousness of Zav, I think is unpardonable.
Yeah, agreed.
The fact that there was that Bela Lugosi also just really kissing up. I think there are different reasons for why AWP was polite with him on stage. He, you know,
Yeah.
he wanted to take it off the show and discuss it privately. I'm far more willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. But Bela Lugosi and Zav, I mean, she saw this happen. She gave him a platform at the beginning, and then after the just despicable freaking defamation. And this is after the guy who claimed that he got into this was because he couldn't sleep after seeing the grieving mother, to then descend into essentially turning on the family and calling them liars and completely discounting their grieving as a fake, as a lie, as part of a conspiracy for 65,000 GoFundMe dollars. I mean, despicable. And for Zav just to sit up there and go, hi, you know, nice to have you, and everybody's just nice and polite. And then he managed to sort of, you know, he obviously can maintain himself, you know, under certain circumstances. Just they should have been challenging the fuck out of him. Why did you say that? How can you justify that? You completely contradicted yourself.
What I would say to the Sunflower Pirate, he just asked, why can't we give creators you disagree with the honestly acting out of their principles too? And I think that he has visibly he has no principles because he is going back on he's going back on what he's
I mean, yeah, I agree. He doesn't have principles.
He had no evidence that the mother was lying, and that's just an insanely bombastic claim. Again, the man is not thinking, and I don't believe he's acting in good faith. Because if you're claiming that, you know, just like in the Sandy Hook case, you're claiming that the Rodnis are lying about their missing daughter, that their daughter isn't dead, that they don't even have that daughter, and yet you and I all know that the odds of us not going to that hometown and finding thousands of witnesses, because to believe what he's saying, you just know that hundreds of people would have come forward to say, Kiely Rodni's mother does not have a daughter named Kiely. She did not go missing. She's lying.
But we
would know that. These are not consequential claims. We know.
But Zavigal did the same thing with Jim Terry, who basically was a pretty bad actor. You probably might have heard about him. And
I went and watched him for 2 minutes the other night, and I just went, this guy is just a freaking jock, arrogant prick.
Well, I could tell you a little bit. Basically, what happened is that he basically was a private eye, like PI, but unlicensed in states. And then what happened is that he would go on Facebook and say, oh, I can find your kid. And then he would get money, and then he would probably either not do the job or he would do a shitty job. And most of the people he never found. And eventually he found Dylan Round's case, and the mother released a phone interview that basically had him cursing at her. A YouTuber, Sleuth Mom, released it, and then basically he went nuts, started going on all these panels that would let him on, and said that he would pay $500 to dox Sleuth Mom, the YouTuber, and Zav Girl let him on, and he did it multiple times, and eventually he started cursing out the Dylan Rounds family, like the victims, and all these YouTubers played ball, and eventually...
Which PI is this?
Jim Terry. And basically what happened, Zav Girl let him on, but eventually he started blackmailing her behind the scenes. So she came out like, oh, he's blackmailing me. And I'm like, yeah, you let this guy on your channel. But long story short, because these YouTubers let him on all these channels, like Tyler Feller let him on, Doug let him on multiple times with like fake bullshit stuff. Like
Doug is scum. Doug is actual scum.
Yeah,
I documented him a lot. I thought the minute I saw this Jim Terry guy, he was just, you know, Doug, you know, you got nothing on me, you know, I owe you, you know, you're an idiot, I'm smart, you're dumb, you're not smart enough. And it's just like, if you're just, you know, engaging with Doug like that, you're probably at Doug's level.
Yeah, and now he's backstabbing Doug, and Doug's using the fact that Jim said in his live, he says, I heard the Kiely Rodni case, she was a whore and her parents should be shot. Like, that's what he said.
Christ.
And people still watch him.
People are so awful. Yeah. It's like that, not just the Jim Terry guy, but the other nerdy guy who has literally been done for like sexual battery. and people treat him like he's some kind of god. And then there's that other JR or JP or something, some other guy, and he's the one that
so typical YouTube drama. I mean, this is drama. It's not true crime.
These people are terrible people.
Yeah, and I don't watch them. I just like her, because the only reason why I knew about him was because I used to watch Sleuth Mom. I watched Sleuth Mom.
Wow, sorry to cut you off. Lauren had that guy on Hidden True Crime.
At first, and then what happened is that he had someone visit Laura's dead husband's grave, his brother, and also threatened his 14-year-old kid that he would put a football, like a poster of her 14-year-old kid, of her husband died of an overdose. And he did this on Doug's show, and Doug was backing him up. But then now Jim is turning on Doug, and now they're at war on their various channels because Jim was doing his show on Doug's time slot. That's basically why the war happened, and it's such craziness. It's like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's why I had to stop watching. That's why I had to stop watching True Crime. I don't watch anything anymore.
Nerdy addict.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's those people I don't watch. I just heard this because you hear this stuff and it's just freaking crazy.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I got really involved. I mean, I totally admitted I came here with a purpose, and then I got caught up in it. It is addictive, and then you start seeing this horrific behavior, and then you need to know what the next person responded or the next person did, and you get involved and you get addicted, and it's just very easy to fall down the rabbit hole, and then you're afraid to miss the next a piece of evidence, and it's very hard to extricate yourself from it. So I don't blame anyone for falling in the what do you call it, what's the
rabbit hole?
No,
sorry, JDR.
What's the
please Google Nerdy Addict's full name. It's about him and sexual assault and abusing an ex-girlfriend. He is like that.
Quicksand, Tim.
And the Sunflower Pirate, you can just...
Yeah, Tim, I was thinking of quicksand. I mean, rabbit hole works too, but you just you get stuck in the quicksand, and it just pulls you down, and it's really hard to extricate yourself because it's so outrageous, and that's why it sells. That's why it's this sensationalism. It's why it works, and that's why I said before that these people they're not smart people, but they intuit our psychological buttons. They understand what works to get eyeballs and attention, and you're on the other side going, this is so outrageous, and they need to be taken out, and we need to criticize them, and they need to be refuted, and then you essentially simply give them more content and more views, and it becomes a vicious circle, and you just go you can't stop it, and it's just very frustrating.
Yeah, like
circle that never stops.
A little girl instead of a 15-year-old or whatever girl, that poor little girl, and it's like you're appealing to people's sense of morality and their want to protect children or whatever to get them emotionally to focus on the case.
Well, right.
You know what I mean? To follow what he was saying.
It's that appeal to emotion fallacy, and then you really infuriate people when you start suggesting that people are responsible for harming children or sexually abusing children, and then that becomes your in the scientific skeptic world. Welcome back, Tim. In the scientific skeptic world, we call these people grief vampires, that they thrive on human suffering, grief and depression and anxiety and moral panic, and in the skeptic world they call them tragedy pimps. Same thing.
I don't know. I mean, do you think the best way to deal with it is to just report these people and just ignore just don't watch any of them? Because it seems like because the more attention they get, the more views they get, and more people.
Right. I mean, when I had become when I hit the end of my rope, because I really only came here to go after bad cop Chris McDonough, and
that was terrible.
I've only been dragged back into this because of Ryan Upchurch. Somebody asked me to review him, and because of his his influence,
Yeah,
I
it was
realized
me.
that it was Jen, but I didn't want to tell unless you wanted to share it. But and somebody else had mentioned it, but it was your appeal that made me go take a look, and I was so disgusted that I went, yeah, somebody needs to address this guy, and I think I'm not bad at this sort of thing. In any case, it bothered me enough that I came back. But the point I wanted to make was that, Tim, to your question, at the end, when I was really at the end of my rope, I was just going, please, people, there's only one solution here. Please get bored of this. Please recognize that these people are, they're just opportunists. They're just in it for the money. They're just in it for their own ego. Please go find something else to do. Go find a show on TV. Go plant some flowers in the kitchen window. Go pet your dog. Just find another hobby. These people were just feeding into it, and because you can't stop them. And when you fight with these people, like somebody said, I was fighting with somebody at some point on Twitter, and somebody said block him, and I went, no, but I just owned him. I just made like a knockdown argument. I made him look completely ridiculous, and I used his own words against him, and they went, no. And I'll never forget that moment. He said, no, every new tweet you're making, he is screenshotting it and using it for content for tomorrow's live stream. And then it hit me that every time I was engaging with these people, and then I saw it happen multiple times, then if I would say something in a video against them, or I would type something out, they screenshotted everything I said. They screenshotted everything I wrote, and then they would take it out of context, put it in another video, completely spin it into how I was a horrible person, or I was a pedophile, or I was a criminal, or I was in on the conspiracy, and then and all of his followers would go, yeah, that guy's scum, and I would just go, okay, you're not dealing with good faith, rational actors. Their people will believe anything they say, and every time you're engaging with them, you're simply giving them more content. And that really hit me. And so you're right. There's nothing to be done really, except if we all stopped watching. And that's just, unfortunately, not very reasonable an expectation. But that's the only way to stop them.
Content address and offensive.
Yeah, report it. Yeah, that's what I said too.
But most of the time, YouTube is not going to do anything. Most of the time, most of the more clever ones, they know what they can get away with and what they can't. They know what YouTube will tolerate, and even if they get one video taken down or they have to wait a month, they're not going to stop. The only thing to stop them is to no longer watch, and it's just not practical to believe that will happen.
I mean, like, honestly, YouTube's run by like a computer, and the only way you actually contact anyone from YouTube is from Twitter. And you have to get like a big content creator with a check mark to actually send like a reply, and that's pretty much none of us. So good luck with that.
Do you think one day that because social media, like, it's already so prevalent and prolific, but it's becoming such a vital part day to day, that eventually these private companies will kind of like the government or something, so that it's like accessible for everyone, kind of like it'll become like a kind of not like privately owned. Saw something about that recently. Sorry, my brain's fucked because
you mean making it like a public square? You mean making like a public square where the government owns everything and everyone has a say?
Yeah, like
first,
it's almost like a necessity. It would become sort of like part of like infrastructure, like part of a must-have,
like a utility. Well,
yeah, that's the word.
So you're talking about like privatizing these sorts of businesses? Oh, sorry, the opposite of privatizing.
Yeah.
Publicizing, which is not the right word, but sort of, turning it into something like a public utility. Well, I'm actually more of the mind that I think we should just enforce antitrust rules in the book, legislation on the book. So I think both Google, I've been arguing for years as an economist, Google, Facebook, and Twitter, and Amazon should be broken up like the baby bells back in the 70s and 80s when they actually enforced the antitrust laws, because these are now extranational corporations that are too big to stop, and it's no longer if a national government tries to stop them, they will simply restructure and move to another country that where they won't be broken up. So, I've been arguing for a decade that I think now large corporations have flown the coop, and that we need to set up some sort of international economic oversight board that could handle multinational corporations that are simply too big to be regulated and managed anymore by any national government.
Yeah.
But of course, a lot of people who are, to the right of me on that front will argue, on sort of libertarian economic views that
we know libertarian's a dream. It doesn't exist.
Yeah. I always try to avoid
If we're better,
politics in this space, but I do believe they need to be split up. Amazon needs to be split up. It's destroyed competition.
Oh, they have such a monopoly.
They have a monopoly. They have effectively a monopoly, and arguably Facebook. Now, I've struggled trying to even imagine how you split a Facebook up, but I don't need to make that decision. That they need to be split up to encourage competition, and I think should be uncontroversial. But we've really reversed course on that. In the 80s, 70s, and 80s, we had a strong antitrust economic philosophy, and now we have a neoliberal economic position where, hey, man, let them go. They're successful. They create jobs. If they fucking then buy all our politicians and, whatever, destroy entire domains of innovation and opportunity, then whatever, man.
The only competition you actually see with, and it's not even competition, is Odyssey and BitChute and Rumble or something. And the only people that use that are people that are banned from YouTube because they believe like the craziest ideas.
Right. Absolutely.
Vimeo, like Andrew Tate did, because he couldn't upload his farewell.
Yeah, well, Andrew Tate's another character. He's, I'm sure you could spend a long stream on him. That guy's a character for sure.
I don't even know.
He's
I'm probably I'm better off.
Yeah, you're probably better off.
Yeah.
Better off.
But yeah, it's a wild one. But basically, it's.
I know somebody asked me to go review whatever Jim Terry, and I watched for 5 minutes, and I went, "What an asshole! I can't listen to that guy. What an asshole."
I've had to listen to him. It was not good. I mean, like, what shocked me really about that whole thing wasn't Jim Terry, because you always have like the assholes on YouTube. It's just the people, what they will do for views and money, and it just yeah. And
before I left, do you know who Enchanted Life Path is?
No, I don't.
Oh my God! What a lunatic! What an absolute immoral, horrible human being that guy is. I mean,
buy my essential oils and snake oil.
Oh, the depths that he went to go after me after I made a video on him. He then accused us of being pedophiles. He accused us of being Australian. He accused me and my girlfriend of being these Cornell, Yale scientists. We're both scientists, and he like just completely made up a story about who we were, and all of his followers believed it.
I can't believe he accused you of being Australian. That's
right.
That's one step too far.
Do I sound Australian?
Where's your giant knife and your crocodile?
Right. I'll slip a shrimp on the barbie for you, mate.
Yeah, you're wearing the right attire, fuller to Australian attire.
I mean, there's like WCIA, Newsroom, Enchanted Life Path, even sort of like Nita's World. this is really, these are like the bowels of the true crime ghetto that it's like not even worth dedicating time, but they're not insignificant. They have impact, and it's just really scary.
Well, I got mad because I sat there. I'm like, you're legitimizing this guy we have interviews of people being scammed by him, and you legitimized him by having him next to you, like Tyler Feller, who's like a priest, who's like his channel's a 501c3, and it's supposedly supposed to be a Christian 501c3 that he does missing persons. And he says because he does one, I confronted him. He says because I did one church thing a week that somehow makes it a Christian charity. And he kept on letting Jim on, even though he was saying like fuck the parents and all this stuff. And I'm like, you're legitimizing the guy, and now he's going to get a following, and now he has a following. He has a YouTube channel, and he gets 100, like 1,000, like 1,200, 1,500 people watching him. Because you all legitimized him.
When you do acknowledge, when you acknowledge it, and it is a problem, because then it just grows arms and legs, and it's terrible.
Tim, to your earlier point too, in terms of what you can do, refuting them, making content on them, they thrive on it.
Yeah.
It's not only do you not make a dent, it helps them. I mean,
it's wrestling. It's basically entertainment. It's like the more people.
Right, and then you just get into this sort of tit for tat, and it's just like I really tried at the very beginning. I'm not doing tit for tat. I just like at least trying to avoid the temptation. You hit somebody, and then they hit you back, and then you just go, okay, I'm done. That's why I like to make like a comprehensive video. That's why I suck as a marketer, because if I cared about growing my channel, I would make a new little tiny video every day. I'd keep the content rolling, and I would just keep responding to their comments. And I do an analysis of them. It takes a long time, and then I make one or two like comprehensive videos, and then I'm just like exhausted. I'm just done. It took so much out of me. But that's not what these guys do. They keep they just keep going.
You're making the content. You're making the content for them, basically.
Yeah, they're made though, and you're motivated because your conscience wants you to stop things, which when you take on the mental weight of that, it's very heavy and time consuming.
But do you know what gets under their skin when you laugh at them? Because I remember a lot of people found his Doug's when he was arrested for when he was a that video when he was like one of those people that film people.
The First Amendment. Yeah. I made a whole series on him. Absolutely.
That was hilarious.
So I talked about in my live stream a couple of days ago. I said, judge me as you will, but when reason and evidence no longer works, you absolutely have ridicule, shaming, and shunning at your disposal. So that's
what I've chosen. For a reason.
Yeah, I've chosen my rhetorical approach in terms of, like, for example, I've gone after Upchurch as a redneck, piece of white trash. And that's by design. I mean, I'm half white trash. I don't go after people for classist things. I don't go after people because they're uneducated. But when you're this dangerous and you can't reason with them, they don't like to be shamed. They don't like to be mocked. They don't like to be ridiculed. So short of punching them in the face, ridicule, unfortunately, is a very successful approach. It's used in other animal kingdoms, as I began this thing, and I talked about it at length the other day. Ridicule is absolutely a tool. That's why I use satire and parody. So last night, I don't know if you saw my video last night.
Yeah, with the whole car, with the tobacco in the mouth thing.
Yeah, I just and I know that I risk somebody coming and going like, you're just some like elitist scumbag, and it's like, I get that, and I do feel uncomfortable. I'd prefer to do this, in an intellectual fashion, but this is the Wild West out here. There is some argument that you need to fight fire with fire, so we need to be creative. So I think it takes all kinds. I think somebody, and sometimes I make straight videos, sometimes I make parody videos, sometimes I just use mockery, And I think, you need to hit them from all sides because it works for some people some of the time. But again, there's always going to be the argument that, maybe you should ignore them, but you just like kind of going, but if nobody challenges them, their content, there's no body of work of anybody ever challenging them. At least now, if you type Doug Hutton, I got a bunch of video pieces with massive amount of evidence showing Doug Hutton is a criminal and a con artist, an ambulance chaser, an immoral piece of shit, and a abuser of women, and a
revenge pornographer as well.
Yeah, so at least there's a body of work when somebody's doing their homework on somebody and uses the search engine, that at least everything that comes up under Doug Hutton is not, good Doug. It's, at least like, oh, somebody might click on it and go, oh God, I'd never known any of this. Wow, I find people all the time, they see my old videos and they go, I didn't even know any of this stuff about the old Doug Hutton and what he used to do before.
Yeah.
So, you're left going, say, if you don't say anything, then nobody challenges it. And if you say something, then you only give them more content and more attention. And you're like, what do I do?
I feel like the true crime community is a bit like The Walking Dead. You've got like pods of people that are trying to do, like, just trying to get through the hordes of the great unwashed kind of thing, and then there's these other little pods have to meet to be able to make any kind of impact on the masses. But their two biggest group of people are just blindly following these creators without taking it in for cheap entertainment. And I think it got worse over the pandemic and being online more, and these communities really started like thriving. It's just like you've got these little sort of groups of people, and without them all coming together, you'll have massive audiences that these creators have that sustain. Does that make sense?
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, they're cults of personality, and they manifest like cults of personality, and they're tribes. They're little cult tribes, and they as social animals, we long for belonging, and a lot of these people are lost, and they have things going on in their life. Some of them are lonely. Some of them are empty nesters. Some of them are going through financial distress, and they find someone that they somehow have an affinity with, and they just glom onto them, and then it becomes a community for them. It becomes a comfortable place where they can come in every night and speak a similar language and support each other. And once you have that strong belonging form between this community, trying to split it up, trying to go after the queen bee, makes the bees go crazy, and long to restore the health of their little hive.
Yeah.
So
it's funny you mentioned Queen Bee, because that was what Jim's at war with now, because apparently she had the interview with the parents, and then he made shirts. There's a channel called Queen Bee. He made a shirt of her face on it and is selling her doxed face on a shirt. It's crazy.
I mean, in the Summer Wells case, I mean, that's really been a wonderful case study in the exploitation of a 5-year-old missing girl, because nobody in this space, I mean, all these guys, they do that same thing. They bang on their chest. I mean, I have like video showing, Ryan Upchurch going, I'm the only one that's finding clues, and the cops are way behind me. I give so that it's that I'm the only one morally righteous and intelligent enough to solve this case, banging on your chest. I have videos of Doug Hutton say, if anybody's going to find the West Boy, it's going to be Doug Hutton. It's going to be me, talking about him in the third person. I have videos of Benny Keys saying the same thing. I'm the only one that can find Summer Wells. I'm the only one that cares. They all use the same playbook, and people buy it. Chris McDonough, same thing. I'm the only one that really cares, and I'm the only one who has the skills to solve this case. And in the end, these people, none of them solve any case ever. The odds of any of these people ever solving a case is near zero. Will one of them someday maybe solve a case? Maybe, but the odds are
people that are like, I need to take a break from this case myself. Blah, 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 blah. I've done so much for this case, and everyone's like, thank you so much for everything you do, absolutely eating out their asshole, and it's like these people they've contributed nothing.
They've done
All
anything.
they've done is added to speculation and helped.
And in many cases, they've
and they
created
made money from it.
And they've also created a whole host of innocent victims. So they don't, not only do they not solve and find victims, they create new victims that are innocent. So again, I have videos sort of showing how they accused innocent people. They found meaningful patterns that claimed that, was the smoking gun, and that there was some other person that was somehow involved, and none of these things ever pan out. These people then get doxxed and threatened, and eventually someone's going to get killed. And everyone, and the other problem too, it's also something you see too in social media in terms of the news cycle, that our memories don't seem to be able to retain things for very long. So these people, it's just like if you ever go look at like a eschatology thing on like Wikipedia or whatever, like all of the people that have ever asserted the date of the second coming of Jesus or the apocalypse, and they give a date, and like all the cult sells all their belongings, and they all show up in the middle of a cornfield in the middle of Indiana, and nothing happens, and the world goes on, and these people have now lost all of their property, they've lost all of their wealth, they're now completely in poverty, and they don't even hold it against their guru leader, because the guru then comes back and gives it an excuse, and he says, oh, I got the numbers wrong, I'm off by 6 months, and then he makes another prediction, and they still buy it. And then when 6 months comes and that prediction doesn't happen, they forget that they got duped 10 times before. So it never changes. Yeah. So these people, they make a video on Thursday that says they found the smoking gun and they've solved the case, and they do their little monkey dance. And then on Monday, it's already been discredited, and they've already gone on a new idea, and everybody was going, oh my God, you're a genius, you solved the case, blah, blah, oh my God, you're the man. And then on Monday, they've already forgotten that this person's prediction has been shown to be incorrect, and they just keep remaining loyal and forgetting how many times this person has been wrong. They never hold them accountable.
Or they've been so indoctrinated and fearful because they've given up everything to follow this person that they can't escape.
Benny Keys talked about them. Yeah, Benny Keys talked about the magic phone, and that was the smoking gun, and he'd solved the Summer Wells case. Did he solve the case? Did anything ever come out of that? Was that even a relevant variable? No, not as far as I know. We know nothing about that case. I claimed it was cold case 9 months ago. Yeah. And still there are people exploiting the Summer Wells case, still claiming they have some piece of evidence that's going to solve the case. Is there any reason to believe them any more today than any day for the last 9 months? No.
Yeah, it's kind of sad too, because you're basically it's like you're fighting a losing battle,
and and making money off the back of a probably dead girl. That might remain a cold case, and then possibly having terrorized innocent family. Now, I don't know that they don't know something.
Yeah.
But if they're wrong, and because they have no good reason to suggest that they're right, we have every good reason to not accept their claims, in which case all that I can see is you made naked allegations against a host of people. You haven't solved the crime. You haven't gotten justice for the victim. And it's just atrocious. It's depressing. It never ends, and the cycle just repeats every single day.
All the red flags that they signal, red flags to the people that want to call them red flags, because to them it's something that's made them, gives them a reason or appeals to their bias. The truth is, like, these Candace and Dawn have done their question in like their general lives, but there's absolutely nothing to suggesting to do with their kids' disappearance. Like, there's no proof. You know what I mean? To their house and yelling at them and screaming at them.
Yeah.
And,
Billhorn Betty's still doing it. Billhorn Betty accused Jagger. She went on the stream and literally, like, after watching AWP, she's now accusing Jagger of somehow some sort of
'cause
disappearance.
it was a boy and a cat.
Yeah, and a
boy
San Francisco cat
Francisco.
in California.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
And
like,
you know, like Ryan at the beginning said, you guys, this is all about a missing girl. You all think that this is a joke. And you know what I brought up the idea the other day. I was like, the reason it's like with QAnon, because there's been a lot of research into the psychology of QAnon and why it's so appealing, and it's because it's like this big virtual reality game where everybody gets to participate and look for clues everywhere. Like it's like that.
An
It's like
escape room.
it's like that game. What was it called? Go, the Japanese company that got the little cartoon characters, and then they had the app that everybody was going around trying to find clues in the world. What was it called? Pokemon Go.
Pokemon Go.
Pokemon Go. And so basically, YouTube True Crime Ghetto, or a lot of just true crime, is basically
it's an ARG. Basically,
everybody's playing virtual Clue. So they think they treat it like a game. So again, when Upchurch calls it, everyone thinks it's a fucking joke. He thinks it's a fucking joke. He treats it like a joke. He treats it like a game. This is a game for him. He gets on his little Google and his Google Earth, and he feels like he's playing, a exploration game where
it's just an ARG for like.
Yeah, it is. It's virtual Clue. You know, they're playing online Clue. You know, it's online Jeopardy, online Clue. It's a big game for these people, and they believe that the ideas that rattle in their thick skulls are somehow meaningful clues, and that it has relevance to the case. And you'll find that after the fact, if you were to write out all of the things that people thought were clues in the True Crime Ghetto after a case was fully solved, you'd find that 99.99999% of everything that somebody thought was meaningful or a clue in a case was completely irrelevant.
Yeah.
I think as well, though, it's like Ryan said about like the stuff that you mentioned. You can't disprove it. You can't disprove it. It's like QAnon and the New World Order. You can't exists. You know.
It's called the reverse.
But it's obviously not.
Right. It's called the reversal of the burden of proof and logic. and none of us need to prove a negative. None of us need to disprove that we are not who we say we are. The person making the claim that we're not who we say we are needs to support the claim. If you claim that somebody's guilty, he's always claiming, prove to me that it's real. No, you're the one who made the positive claim. You have the burden of proof. You need to prove that they're not real. You need to prove that this is relevant. You need to prove that this is in any way meaningful or relevant to the case of a dead girl. And if you can't, shut the fuck up, because you're fucking whistling Dixie and you're fucking just being a provocative, egotistical, ignorant fool who thinks that his ideas are somehow interesting, and they're not, because smarter people for thousands of years have thought through how to formulate logical arguments. And Ryan Upchurch, you wouldn't know a fucking piece of cornbread from a logical argument.
Sometimes make a claim, they just use the power of suggestion. You know, they don't even need to necessarily just post something sort of vague. Yeah.
And they do the spooky language. You put some scare quotes over somebody's behavior in a press briefing, and then you go, "What was that? Did you notice that?" And that's sufficient to place doubt in the mind of the gullible follower. It goes, "Oh, yeah, that was weird. That must be meaningful." This is apophenia. This is called psychological priming. So if you trust an authority, Chris McDonough did it all the time in all the cases that I was covering him. In all his videos, in the Jamie Wilson case, he's like, "And did you notice that guy named Jamie has the same name as the Jamie that Don Wells worked for?" And everybody went, boom, bombshell, blah, blah. It was the wrong Jamie. They were two completely different people. But because of the language that he uses, the approach he uses, this, "Ooh, did you see that? That was strange." You've already primed a brain to think that there's this detail that's somehow relevant. And it's only because of the tone of voice and the suggestion that this is somehow relevant, and then the insinuation that it's somehow sinister and nefarious. They all do it all the time, and the audience just eats it up. Yeah, that was weird. That must be important. And yet, when you actually look back in the case, it was a completely irrelevant detail. It had nothing to do with anything.
Yeah. Well, thank you for answering my questions, and thank you for having me on. I kept on dodging. I don't know what's wrong with my internet, but you have a good night, man.
A pleasure talking with you, Tim. Thanks for coming up. Take care, my friend.
Thank you. Bye.
See you again. Take care. Okay, unless anybody else wants to take a shot at me, I didn't see you guys all telling me what a poor case I made on we need to cancel Ryan Upchurch. So I guess maybe my
you're just surrounded. That's what it is. You're just being your confirmation bias is being reinforced.
Yeah, in any case, if you do think it's a good idea, I mean, I thought about it actually after I started this video, but why not, if you do believe that we should use a bit of shaming and shunning and canceling of Ryan Upchurch, by all means, you guys, why not? I know these things sound so dumb to me, but why not start spreading a stupid hashtag? Hashtag cancel Ryan, or hashtag cancel Ryan Upchurch, or it's a hashtag cancel up. If nothing else, it will infuriate the Cretan squad, and if it gets any traction, if nothing else, maybe they'll feel a tad bit of heat. What do you think? Hashtag cancel Ryan? I don't know. What do you think? You guys tell me.
Because he's lying through his fucking teeth.
I'll do it. I'll start using it in all my videos, and it'll piss people off, and then they'll want to make videos, and they'll be insulting me and dropping ad hominems. I'm not afraid of any of these guys. Bring it on. They're all cowards. They can't even back up their own claims, and they think that they can just shoo you away. And I mean, apparently to their audiences, that works. You just go, whatever, all the criticism, they're all just
say
idiots.
Anything on the internet, and it's inconsequential.
Of course, yeah. Yeah.
So, I'm gonna go because I'm still feeling really poopy, and she wants her food.
Yeah, you sound it, and I need to eat. Luckily, I drank slow, so I'm not. Could you invite Ryan to talk to you? I'd probably be. First of all, he likely would not. I'm a nobody. I have no subscribers. I'm insignificant. But he did talk about the Glare today. The Glare did come on my show, and I had a lengthy discussion with him. It was the first time I ever met the guy, and he did talk about that. I don't even know his name. He called him like that samurai ninja guy or whatever. I did use a clip of that guy's video, which sort of exposed Ryan when he was on the panel in real time when we got the news that her body had been found. So he did reference, and then I thought it was so funny. He was like, well, the channels that I like, Voice Behind the Wall, one of my original bad actors. I mean, just a horrific channel. She's engaged in spreading all sorts of misinformation. She is a rank amateur, clearly an opportunist, not a good actor. She doesn't know anything about anything. If you're getting your information from Voices Behind the Wall and you think that that's a quality true crime channel that produces relevant facts to any case, then that just shows you why he is an understudy and learning from the worst of the worst. He's studying the underbelly of the true crime ghetto. There are good channels in this space, people. He likely doesn't even know who they are. He's never heard of them. The only channels
he should just join up with Chris McDonough for the buddy cop.
He watches the amateurs. He watches the amateurs, and then he praises the bad amateurs, and then he makes fun of other amateurs. Like, you're not proving your case. You're simply repeating what we already know. There's a true crime bad actors ghetto full of a bunch of opportunists that have no idea what they're doing. So what a genius. He's just had a revelation, and he thinks we should all be impressed because Ryan Upchurch just realized there's a lot of bad actors in the true crime space. Whoop-de-doo, what a revelation. We've known that for a really long time. That doesn't make your arguments valid, Upchurch. If you're comparing yourself to the ghetto underbelly, the rats, the sewer rats, then that's not a very high bar you've set for yourself. Yeah, he's not going to do any more true crime until tomorrow. And then tomorrow he's going to tell us how he's not going to do any more true crime until the next day. That's how these people act. They all say the same. They rage quit and they come back the next day, and they're addicted. They're addicted to the attention. They're addicted to the adulation. They're addicted to their cult following that just drool at their feet and hang on their every word, and then go out like little worker ants to spread their misinformation, and they get, they feel like they're a god. Why wouldn't they? When you get that kind of obsequious behavior from millions of people, it's pretty hard to not let it go to your head. It takes a pretty big person to not let 3 million doting worker bees and worker ants going out and going, today I live to go out and spread the gospel truth of Ryan Upchurch, a dumb redneck hillbilly rap country singer who doesn't know anything about anything and thinks he's a smart dude, but he ain't. So yeah, unless anybody wants to come up and say something that we haven't talked about tonight, I think I'm getting a bit tired. I think I should probably go make some tacos or maybe some pasta, and maybe pour another drink, maybe find a nice movie. I hope you guys have had a good time. I hope there was a bit of content here for us to think about. I hope I made a bit of a case. Obviously, I tried to do most of it off the top of my head today. The rest of my arguments are in the videos I've made on Mr. Upchurch. He clearly has not made his case. He's clearly done some pretty horrific things. He's clearly too much of a coward to admit he's wrong. I think he's dangerous. I think we should try to cancel him. And again, it's partly rhetorical. I know we can't cancel anyone, but we can at least maybe make a dent, try to create a few more converts, try to maybe prevent a few more cultists from joining. I have seen people that are changing their minds. That's not a bad thing. So keep the faith or something like that. Thank you all for coming. It's always a pleasure hanging out with you. You guys are my Friday night social event as well. So thank you, and hope you had a good time. Wish you a nice rest of the evening or day, whatever your time zone is. And we will do this again shortly. So all the best, and hashtag cancel Ryan. This is the Brain of At signing off. Jusqu'à la prochaine fois. À tout à l'heure, mes copains. Amusez-vous bien. Traitez-vous avec soin. Et à bientôt. Ciao, ciao.